Okay, without further ado, oh, I love these. Without further ado, I'm going to call this meeting of the Nantucket Historic District Commission to order. Present at tonight's meeting are John McLaughlin, Stephen Welch, Val Oliver, Jesse Dutra, TJ Watterson, Abby Camp, and myself, Ray Pohl. Two things we ask of the audience every week. One, if you would like to record any portion of tonight's meeting, please let us know in advance. The whole meeting is being recorded. And number two, if you have any conversations other than that taking place at this table, they should probably happen out in the hall so that we can hear what's being said for the minutes. Thank you. And I suppose no adjustments to the, okay? Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, John. All those in favor?
Yeah.
Hi.
Aye.
Hi, John.
Okay. So, is there any public comment at this time? Hearing none, we're going to move right along to our second agenda item, which is a report from the Historical Commission. You guys are all welcome to come on up, whoever wants to speak and participate in this. I think we have one thing to add to this agenda, item 2, that I received today. Don't we? Oh, it's already on here. Yeah, oh, I thought that was an additional item. Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going really well. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here, and thanks for inviting us all up. There's 3 of us here.
So just as a formality, what we're going to ask of the 3 of you is that you just give your names for the record, just so that we have that.
Sure.
Okay? Thanks.
Yeah, I'm Hillary Hedges-Rayford, and I'm here in my capacity as chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission.
I'm Georgia Raisman, and I'm a member of the commission.
Mickey Rowland, another member.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having us here. I just want to say I've watched some of your meetings, gotten to know some of you a little bit, done a lot of reading as we've reformed this historical commission since July. And I just want to thank you all for the incredible hard work you do. You are guardians of Nantucket, and it's kind of superhuman what you do at this table week in, week out. Some of you have an incredible tenure in this position. So really from the bottom of my heart, and I think I speak from the whole commission, thank you for what you do.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
So we're trying to do our part as well. The Historical Commission is organized under Massachusetts general law, so we are all, I guess, special municipal employees. And we don't do design review of private buildings, obviously, but there's a lot of other preservation-oriented concerns on Nantucket with the whole island as a historic district and the whole island as a national historic landmark that we work on. There are 9 of us all together right now with 2 alternates, and we work very closely with Holly. So we were thrilled to hear that Holly is the new preservation planner on Nantucket, a position we advocated for, and we were really thrilled that it was filled so well. So I think that's going to be a huge positive thing for preservation on Nantucket.
We agree.
Yeah. So we've had 4 meetings so far. We were formed in July. We produced 3 reports and 1 letter of guidance. The topics that we've addressed have been, we produced draft guidelines for materials on streets and sidewalks. We did a review of the Milestone Road project and made request of the Department of Transportation to make some adjustments to that project to preserve this, what we talk about a lot, which is the special visual quality of Nantucket. We also we wrote a memo on bike parking, which you all had some input into as well, and we sent that to the Transportation Department. And the most recent report, which has been out in draft, and we're continuing to work on it, and we'll probably finalize it at our meeting this Friday, is on roundabouts. Specifically, we responded to the federally funded project at the corner of Surfside and Bartlett Road. So whenever there's a federally funded project or a state-funded project, it gets reviewed under Section 106. So your commission and our commission are invited to comment on it. We took the opportunity to make comments on that specific plan, but we also took the opportunity to talk about roundabouts, what we call roundabouts with Nantucket in mind. There's been, I mean, how many years are you going to talk about a roundabout? It's like 10 years later and we're still talking about roundabouts that haven't been built and may never be built. We as a commission don't take a position on whether or not a roundabout should be built, so we don't have a position that there should or shouldn't be a roundabout at the corner of Surfside and Bartlett Road. But we felt that there was a role for us to play and a contribution we could make thinking about the aesthetics of roundabouts. How do you, if you're going to make a roundabout, how do you make it fit in visually to Nantucket? So I thought we could take just a couple minutes to talk about that and maybe get your thoughts on that. Then the next project that we're taking on, we hope, with the help of Holly and encouragement of Holly, is involving building with Nantucket in mind. So, which I have right here, you're all very familiar with it. It's an excellent, excellent piece of work, wonderful to read. And there is a CPC grant that was awarded several years back to update. The grant was written with the objective of updating it. That work has not been done, and I think there's a lot of benefit that could come from doing something along the lines of making this document, refreshing it. And that's a very careful thing that I want to say that very carefully, and I will talk more about what that could mean, which we could talk about in partnership with you. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about roundabouts. Holly, could you put those pictures?
I'm having problems with the display.
Okay, well, we have printouts.
Certainly I received a copy. You emailed that around to all the commissioners, right? So if anyone checks their email, they would have seen the really great photographs that you have a precedent. Can I ask you a question of in between time, going back to the Milestone project, which we appreciate your input on. So the protocol for you at the moment is you would write a report and you would deliver that to the DPW or the state or
under
both?
Section 106?
Yeah, or well, let's take Milestone Road specifically.
Yeah. So Milestone Road was an unusual situation because that was a federally funded project, so it was available for Section 106 comment. And nothing is going to be built by the Department of Transportation unless they satisfy the categorical exclusions report. They have to do this thing, and they have to show if it's in a historic district, they have to show the Massachusetts Historical Commission and the state, is run by the SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Officer, that they have made sure that it doesn't negatively impact an historic district.
Oh,
so they send,
fabulous.
Yes, so anything that has federal money or state money, they have to be concerned about environmental regulation and historic impact.
So what's up with all the signs then?
So, are there a lot of signs that have just been put? I actually haven't,
Nothing much yet.
What do you mean, what's up with all the signs?
I mean, there was at one point, and I think that maybe thanks to you guys, or I'll call the town, just recently in the paper said there was going to be 70 new signs coming up on the highway, and that the town said, can we cut that back?
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So the order of operations, so to speak, is that the project manager needs to send a notice to the Historic District Commission and the Historical Commission and give them the opportunity to comment on the project and say whether or not it will negatively impact a historic district. So for example, Vineyard Wind, we are now, when I say we, I mean the island, not just the Historical Commission, although we are now a consulting party to that project, will have the opportunity to give feedback about how that project impacts us because it's a federally funded project. In the case of Milestone Road, they sent that letter in early 2018. And we didn't exist at that time. And so we didn't review the project at that time because we didn't exist. And even though the project was underway, our commission collectively decided that it was important to review it in detail. At that point, to answer your question, Ray, the process was a little different. Normally what would happen is that the letter comes to us from the project manager with very specific feedback about who our comments should go to. So it would say, please send your feedback to, you know, such and such a person at the DOT, usually if it's a DOT project. So the comments can come in whatever form, you know, the organization feels is appropriate. So in the case of Milestone Road, we decided to approach it just like we were doing a review, but instead of sending it to the DOT, we needed to send it to the select board. And they actually asked the DOT to make changes. And honestly, we have not actually gotten feedback from the DOT about whether or not they are going to go ahead and put up those signs. So we don't really know what's happening.
And the reason that's an exception is because you weren't in at the ground level.
The window passed.
Okay.
We missed
But
the
it would,
opportunity.
like, in the future, it would happen differently.
Yes. So now we have Bartlett Surfside Road. So they sent a letter in February of this year to the Historical Commission. We didn't exist, but that project is still, Nantucket is paying for the right-of-way and the design of that project. Then it needs to, you know, be approved within the town, and then it will receive federal funds, which have already been approved, and then it will be built by the DOT, assuming that all goes forward. So we have time now because the designs aren't finished, the project isn't approved. So we are writing our Section 106 review, and we will send it directly to the DOT. But I think the bigger opportunity for our commissions together and to think about that special visual quality of Nantucket is just to think about, well, what should roundabouts look like on Nantucket? And maybe, you know, maybe we should all take an opinion about what they should look like.
Okay, great.
So to that point, we came out with the guidance, which has not been officially communicated yet, but which is in our draft report that's posted publicly and will be communicated formally, that we would like, whenever possible, whenever traffic conditions permit, we would like to see the town consider mini roundabouts. Mini roundabouts is actually a technical term. So the roundabout that's right over here at Sparks Avenue is called a modern roundabout. I don't know how wide that one is. It's probably 110 feet across from curb to curb, including the circle. A mini roundabout is more like 50 to 90 feet across. And the idea of a mini roundabout is that they were originated in England because the English wanted to bring roundabouts more into dense urban centers. So these pictures that you have of precedents, these actually came from the Federal Highway Administration. They're mostly in Europe, but the Federal Highway Administration has guidelines for mini roundabouts. There are traffic studies done on mini roundabouts. This is not like something that was created for aesthetics and not for traffic. It was created for traffic control. But what our commission is saying is that we think these aesthetics would fit really nicely and naturally into Nantucket, more so than a modern roundabout. Smaller is always better on Nantucket, generally, we think. But also, if you think about some of the natural nodes and traffic patterns that we have and the street patterns that we have, you think about the monument at the top of Main Street, you think about Caton Circle, you think about the Rotary in Sconset, which is not a roundabout. None of these things are roundabouts. They don't function well for traffic control, but visually, if you think about even Five Corners, the way the streets come together with this big space, we just felt that the mini roundabout is aesthetically a shape that fits more naturally and that we think maybe people would embrace a little bit more than to have roundabouts.
In the 2010.
Yes, and we've all traveled in Europe. I lived in London for about a year and a half. So I was already thinking, well, why can't we have smaller roundabouts? But then when we were doing our research on the Bartlett Road, Surfside Road area, what we discovered was that in 2010, there had been an alternatives analysis done by, hired by the town. They did an alternatives analysis, and they actually recommended a mini roundabout. And so we sort of went off that original recommendation, thinking, wow, well, maybe this makes sense.
I have to ask the obvious question.
Yeah.
I mean, why hasn't that idea been put forward earlier? Why wasn't it considered? Is there something?
What's the opposition?
The first thing that I was thinking is,
Because of the kids crossing the street.
What?
Because of kids crossing the street is the reason it hasn't moved forward.
Well,
No,
Too much foot traffic.
slightly different question.
Oh.
So I wasn't asking about the legitimacy of the roundabout in that location as much as I was asking about the mini roundabout. The first thing I thought is, well, heavy truck traffic, which is why they have that sort of inner circle
Grace Island.
at the Sparks Avenue, right?
The truck apron.
The truck apron, exactly. But then in addition to the truck apron, they also have the green space.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these pictures saying, whoa, if it's a big truck, they just drive.
They drive
over
over it.
Go
That's
right
how
over
they
the
get
middle.
to be
So it's not
smaller.
going to hold anything up. So do any of you have any idea why this idea hasn't been embraced earlier on?
You have to ask people in the town about that.
I have an idea. I do have an idea about that, and because I've asked that question, like, shouldn't there be some more discussion about these mini roundabouts? And our purview is just to say aesthetically, it wouldn't be appropriate for the historical commission to try to convince people, these work better for anything about traffic. But I think that you just don't see a lot of them around in America. And I think that the planners, the people responsible for planning these things, even though their guidance is from the Federal Highway Administration, they're concerned that they're not going to work. They're concerned that people will just drive through them. There's just concern about the unknown. We would be a leader if we did this.
They have them in Charleston. And Charleston was a historic district.
I've seen that elsewhere in Vermont, but I know they exist in this country.
They do. But I think there's like a mental barrier. But I think that should be surmountable. I think we should acknowledge, we should acknowledge that there is this perception, and let's discuss it. That's what I would like to see happen, just speaking as a taxpayer and a driver.
Well, thank you, Hillary. So do you guys want to add anything to it? Because I'm going to open it up to the group, and I have a feeling.
No, go ahead.
Good? Okay. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear from all of you. I don't think we're going to vote on anything. We did sort of a feedback sort of session.
There's one on the vineyard that is very small, and I'm just trying to visualize to remember if there was at all any green space in the middle. But it reminds me very much of that picture of the one in Maryland, around the same size. Only other thing I would add is it would be nice if the material that we're using to construct it, whether it's the curbing or the cobbles or the Belgian blocks, that they were reclaimed, antiqued. It's easy enough to get them, and I don't think it would add a whole extra cost to it. Certainly, being that you're reducing the cost with a mini roundabout versus a roundabout, I don't think that it would be a significant cost change at all.
Thank you, Jesse. Anyone else?
So I think not advocating either way. One of the issues that we, as I recall, we were advised on why we aren't using smaller roundabouts, which, by the way, I applaud this effort. I think it's really important. I think it's time, past time for a broader community discussion so we can be trying to formulate a common vision and come up with solutions we can all live with. But, and I wish aesthetics had a bigger role in that determination, but my understanding was form follows function. Function follows capacity, and capacity aligns with safety. And if these aren't built, so in some instances, if you have a higher capacity intersection and it isn't built with, for instance, a turnoff lane, or if it can't be oriented in such a way that you actually get yields, you get into a situation where you're getting failure rates, which are actually more unsafe than stop signs. Because with stop signs, it's a definitive approach to the intersection stop. The rules of the road are plain and evident. Where with a rotary, it's a little more, it should be plain and evident when you get there who yields and who doesn't, but it's a little more ambiguous. And the problem is if you've got an intersection that is a higher capacity than a mini roundabout will sustain, you get pressure, literally pressure into the intersection, and that's where you start to have problems with safety. So one of the reasons my understanding is that we haven't been using them at all is because the intersections that so far have been proposed for roundabouts have a capacity that is higher than what a mini roundabout would support. I'd like to get clarification on that because I think it's important that if my understanding is correct, that we all have that understanding so it can help inform decisions. I'm not saying that information means that these aren't possible. It just may mean that we have to look at, is a mini roundabout for Nantucket in a certain type of an intersection based upon the capacity level, a midi roundabout versus a mini roundabout versus a whole scale, full size roundabout. So I think it's important that we get some information on that aspect of it so we can make informed decisions and have informed discussion. But as I said to begin, and I mean it, I really applaud the effort. I think it's important to get the discussion going, and it will be helpful for us as a community looking forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Anyone else?
Well, I agree in principle that, and the pictures you've shown, the examples, I think it would be great. But I understand that especially at a school intersection, that if you keep the traffic flowing, when are the kids going to have a chance? And so the kids are on one side of the street, and a lot of them live across the street. So it's going to be, I don't know how you get around that, because it's a situation right now where, where the kids are trying to get across the street at rush hour, and everybody's trying to do the same thing at the same time. So I don't know how you skirt that issue, but in principle, I like the idea. So
I'm gonna sort of remind everybody. Everyone at the table here is here because we're reviewing things from a historical appropriateness. And I think that the question that's being asked of us by your group is, do we agree fundamentally with the concept that if there is going to be a rotary, and if is a big question, but if there is going to be a rotary, would we in any way disagree with the idea put forth that the smaller is better in terms of the rotary? And there might be somebody else, traffic safety or whatever, that says, well, actually you can't do that because of this or that reason. But I would hate to, sort of kill an idea in the early stages simply because we're trying to anticipate what all the problems in other areas might be. For me, it's a no-brainer. From a historical appropriateness, the smaller is the better. And yeah, you see them all over the place in Europe, running through little tiny European towns, and they're like one right after the other. Just
They work great.
and people know how to navigate them. It's a natural flow.
That's the other thing. I think there's a little training that needs to happen by the driver. it's not used to that.
I'm not a particularly good driver, but it didn't take me too long to get it. Even in England, where we're doing everything in reverse.
Well, I think the two issues that Abby and Steve brought up are they're questions for engineers and traffic control.
Yeah.
But I will say that Nantucket, if you want to see traffic studies, boy, do we have them. So for a little transportation planning department that's like one person, we have a lot of traffic studies. And I have really enjoyed reading them. And I've read all of them. And what I found is that, the engineer recommended a mini roundabout. They recommended it based on a capacity analysis in a traffic study. That was done 10 years ago. It's been refreshed in 2018. All of the parameters still hold. So I think as designers and people who care about the historic and the built environment, if we can put some pressure on folks to say, hey, this is what we would really like to see built, and can you figure out how to build it? I think that would be great for the community and to have these community conversations.
I agree. So, yes, John, you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I have
Okay.
a few comments.
Yeah.
If you look through this at the pictures real close, you gotta realize that I think only one is in America.
Yeah.
And the other one, they drive on the left-hand side of the road, that can be confusing just looking at a picture. But I say you gotta do a further study on that fact too. I've been to Europe and I've driven that way, and I almost killed myself a few times. But
Yeah.
Americans are used to driving on the left side of the road. The right side, excuse me, going down, and it's gonna make a
We
lot
wouldn't
of
be
difference.
changing that, nobody's gonna change that. No one's gonna change that. So it would still be just like the rotaries that we already have, it would just be that they were
So,
smaller.
I was saying, in my opinion, you should have had more pictures of America. It doesn't change your
The
thoughts.
problem is they're not as pretty in America. They're here, they're just not as pretty. So we'd be the standard bearer for attractive small roundabouts if we started them.
This is Nantucket, it's not America.
That's a very good point. That's an
They
They
excellent
just point to
point.
us as another European example.
But from a historic point of view, as you were saying, I think we're probably smaller is better.
I think
Yeah,
that's
that's a
a
no-brainer.
general rule that would apply to housing
Smaller
and
cars.
basically everything on that.
Smaller people.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Gosh, I think that if you could promote this idea to those in charge that are making the decision, I think it would be a great idea.
Well, we're gonna try, and I think you can help us.
Yeah, okay,
Go back to you.
good,
So can I talk a little bit about the next project?
certainly.
Okay, great. So there's a grant, it's a $30,000 grant with the idea that it would be used to hire a consultant. The goal is update building with Nantucket in mind, which is a really broad statement. So we formed a little working group. We had a discussion, we're the working group, right? Yeah, so we're the working group with Holly. And we just had a preliminary discussion. We looked at the terms of the grant and said, well, what do we think would be good to happen here? And what we came away with is this document is timeless and excellent. And the question is, can it be more user-friendly? And can it be more enforceable? And is that something that would help your committee? So I watched the joint meeting with the planning board. I watched all 4 hours of it. And what I heard from a lot of people at this table that, you're tired of being the bad guy, or you're constantly trying to defend. Like, people come and say, we want to do this, and it's allowed by zoning. And how do you uphold, what's in here? How do you get what's in here realized in the built environment and, get projects that can be approved and that move forward smoothly and are the best that they can be. So our starting idea from the three of us and Holly is that if we had a project, so our goal is to create an RFP that a consultant would bid on. That's what we want to spend the money on. If we could take this material, make it more accessible via the web, so make it web-based, and pull out all of the excellent assumptions, not assumptions, they're actual statements in here, and they're bucketed, like shall is a rule, should or is a guidance, right? And then there's other recommendations. So they're buckets, and there's a lot of stuff that are really design guidelines with varying degrees of strictness. And if we could pull that out so that so that a builder, a customer of the HDC can look at all of it and understand it without having to read a book, and can get it online. And then maybe we could create some tools, like some checklists that would potentially become an organizing vehicle for a project and an organizing vehicle for approvals. Anyway, this is all super preliminary. Maybe do you two want to chime in?
Yeah, I think you're saying it quite well, and it's still early. It's part of the discussion.
I'm going to give you a few insights. First of all, I'd like to say that, noble task and, daunting task to rewrite that. And we have some subcommittees here that are working on various aspects of updating that document. So an interface there would be a good thing.
Yes.
Now, the reason that we vote on things as a board, as opposed to, handing it to someone and seeing whether the rules are enforced, like a zoning bylaw. Is the building 30 feet high? If it's under 30, you're good. If it's over 30, you're bad. You have this much ground cover, you're good. If you have over that, you're bad. And so wouldn't it be lovely if we were able to sort of codify what we did into these very strict rules? A lot of this and the language, a lot of what we review, language is reflected in that document right there, where there's so much, there's should and shall, and there's also like, it would be better if, and it's a good idea if, but it's like not definitive. And, it's kind of, if you're trying to work off of that document as, someone who designs buildings, you go like, well, this is like, well, there's nothing to hold on to here. It says it would be better if, but if the guy next door is getting the other thing and I'm not, because I'm doing the would be better if part and they're not, a lot of the decision-making process at this table is very, very subjective and discretionary. It's based on context, it's based on visibility from a public way, all these things that we're all familiar with. And so, a 22-foot high guest house is strictly enforced in an area where it's highly visible in the context of other small buildings. It's less so when it's kind of out on a 3-acre property, tucked away in Shawkimo somewhere where you're not going to see it. So these are the things that we take into account as part of our review. It's kind of not really right if we're reviewing something using the 22-foot high regulation when it's fairly obvious that it's not visible from a public way or has very limited visibility. So that's part of the difficulty in moving forward with trying to get a document that people can look at and say, it's just not a yes or no answer very frequently. I'm sure you've been down the same road, and I'm sure you're very aware of all those things. So what do you guys think about this one?
Well, we just had an organizational meeting and didn't even get through that because there is so much information that we're trying to discuss with regard to how we feel about the evolution of that book as a guide. And the guest house thing was one of the concerns that we had. But
an example of
right. I personally, John and Steve have had a subcommittee that was very active last year, but we kind of fell by the wayside for a variety of reasons. But we've sort of took an approach of making modules. So what are the things that come up constantly that could be addressed and made very clear, like fences, like that was one module. What was another one? AC and mechanical equipment.
Roof shingles.
Very,
Chapters.
clear. This is what we would like to see, and if this is not possible, this is what we'd like to see, things like that. What's the context of the neighborhood? So it is hard, and we struggled for many months and spent many hours trying to finesse this stuff and update it, and there is just no single black and white to most of it, if that makes any sense.
But there
We're
can be a
talking
black
about-
and white to some of it.
Well,
The shingle example is a very good one. I think Jesse just brought that up. We were reviewing shingles in and out of the OHDs for a long time, and there was never really a consensus view of what was appropriate and not appropriate. And finally, we said, we got to get our arms around this. So Stephen put together this extensive kind of boards of all the different shingle types, and we all got together and we looked at it and said, good, and we'll allow that outside of the OHD, no good in the OHD. And then we went through shingle. Some of them are just dead out, not approvable. And so now we have a list. And if you're in the OHD and you choose one of those 4 shingle types that are approved, you're good. If you want anything other than that, you have to come before this board and demonstrate why what you're doing makes sense. So there are, certain things that you can really kind of say,
Well,
this
and-
is the right way to do it and this is the wrong way.
More recently is solar panels.
Yes, big.
And there was a group in 2009 that did
Yeah.
some work and put that together as sort of an addendum.
Yes.
And we have been trying to stick to that, but we're getting a lot of pushback. So that is, another chapter for this book that needs to be discussed and thought about as well. So I guess my question would be, how does that work if you guys take this on? Because I really do feel like the input of the commissioners is key.
Absolutely. So, well, what we were hoping is that maybe one or more of you would join a working group to work on this with us. And one of the things that's different is that we just need to come up with the RFP. We don't actually need to do the work because we have budget to hire someone. And so we would work together to come up with an RFP as a subgroup. And then I guess present it to both commissions. And then we would oversee hiring a consultant that was, there's some process that Holly's right in the thick of right now, so she's very familiar with it, with the municipal vulnerability project. So that is a difference. But we were also thinking so that we call it updating building with Nantucket in mind, but we were actually defining it, and again, this is early stages, so I think the group that we form would come to a determination. But our thinking at this point is that we're not actually updating it so much as making it more user-friendly and making the guidelines that are in there, which you all have to interpret, and you're living in the gray zone. But at least the guidelines could be pulled out. So one of the analogies I used was I came across these checklists that the DOT uses. So if the DOT is going to approve a project, they've seen these projects, there's all different sorts of things that go wrong, right? And all different sorts of things that they have to be careful about. So before they can approve a project, they have a checklist. And in this case, it would be an opportunity for the applicant to tick off where their project is in that gray zone. Like, is it more than a certain level of feet? Is it, I'm not going to spell out what the checklist is.
It's almost grading it.
Yeah, just to give you all a heads up, like, does it have a flat roof? oh, it has a flat roof. Why do you think you need to have a flat roof? Like sort of things that you know you're gonna have to drill down on that might be approvable. But so taking what's in here and making it a little bit easier for the applicants to flag where they're kind of in agreement with this and where they're asking for exceptions or going against something that's recommended. Does that make sense? Would
Well,
that be a
the
useful
only thing
tool?
I would say is we have a little mini checklist when you're submitting things and no one even fills that out.
Yeah, I think,
So, yeah,
I think it's unfortunately, first of all, you're not gonna find a stauncher advocate for an update of that. I put many, many hours into that individually and then as part of a small work group, the organizational focus committee. As has been said, what we've done is we've broken it down into modules and we've tried to update those things that are most relevant with respect to applications and the amount of time that this commission spends sitting at the table discussing the same topic week to week, month to month, year to year, to try and codify that so that it eliminates and makes the process, it eliminates waste of time, it makes us both more efficient and effective with respect to processing applications in a way that's sensitive to the historical character and nature of Nantucket. At the same time, it provides applicants the ability to review in advance and see these elements so that they can respond, we hope, accordingly, so that we're not sitting here wasting our time. And when I say wasting our time, I'm not saying that in the sense that being here is a waste of time or hearing applications is a waste of time. However, having applications turned in that are incomplete because of a lack of diligence on the part of the applicant, which you may or may not believe actually happens occasionally, is a problem, and it's a huge waste of our time. So one of the things that we found so clearly is a big issue is some people don't even bother to read the guidelines, let alone from cover to cover, let alone just look in the index. I think people forget an index exists, and you can look up dormer, you can look up window, you can look up deck, you can look these things up. What we did find, what I found was identified in the process, is that there are difficulties that are inherent to the HDC as a commission to using this book. I mean, this is an HDC book. It was envisioned as the HDC kind of a Bible. It was developed and published in that way. So I think that one of the things that we need to be, we as a commission need to be concerned about is that my concern with an RFP, and I have some experience with this, is that no matter how well thought out your RFP is, you're not going to come away with a solution that addresses all the issues. However, the outcome of the RFP will be what the commission is both master and slave. So what I mean by that is, like in a computer system, there's a master and a slave. We are in the position to be controlling, if we so act, what the outcome will be with this, if this is updated or revised. If we don't do that diligently and with success, we are either way, we're subject to the result. But if we don't do it in a thoughtful way that's successful, we're actually creating more problems than we solve, because we've now spent money on an update that has been promoted and put out, and we're anticipating people will utilize it. And I love the idea of the checklist. Self-checklists are really important. I'll get to checklists in a second. But what we've done is we've updated this, we're requesting it of people, but if we don't have tight control over what it is, where we're having issues as a commission over the last 10 or 30 years since it's been written, the result is we're kind of just putting ourselves into the same position, perhaps worse, because people are anticipating, oh, well, I looked at this and I can check it off and I'm good to go. So I guess the short way of saying that is I think that the HDC, if the guidebook is rewritten, it needs to be an HDC work group. It needs to be sponsored and controlled by the HDC so that the outcome is HDC centric. And this is nothing on Historical Commission, but the HDC is the group that spends I don't know, do the math. How many hundreds of hours do we spend here? 300 hours a week or 300 hours a year? Sometimes it feels like 300 a week. 300 hours a year. So
I'll have to do the math on that later.
yeah, the point is it's important that the outcome be something that the commission has driven and is comfortable with, not only as the member sitting here, but as an institution, looking back over what issues have been in the recent and past years. So that was an important element. And then the other thing is I think part of it, there's a lot of good that could come from it. And you know, like with the mini roundabouts, I'm not trying to kill it. Anyone who knows me knows that I try to make really informed decisions. But there is information that we need from the commission as part of any process that would be undertaken. Breaking out the organizational focus committee to look at modules, topics as modules, help us to identify what those issues are, and then to suss them out so that we could then later put them in a book or put them in some type of a written format. Without that, going directly to an RFP to do a rewrite of even if it's just the existing information, I fear that we have a significant opportunity lost. If we were to take, let's say for example, fences from that book, we would not end up with anything different than when we sit at this table today or after it's done than today. Whereas as breaking fences out as a module, as a category, and developing and discussing it with someone who's long tenured, someone who's not nearly as long tenured but still long tenured, we've identified a variety of issues and we've been able to codify them for you all to review, some of which we've already implemented, which are, you know, I'm not going to get into the granularity of it, but my point is that without that aspect of the process, which is organic and it takes time, going right to an RFP to do a rewrite, we're going to have a huge lost opportunity.
Mr. Chair, if I may, sorry, Stephen,
Yeah,
I'd like to kind of give some context on this. So the HDC received a CPC grant, 2014, 2015. You all, HDC received that. I've been told we have a year to utilize that funding. If not, it goes away. No? Okay.
No. And we can always reapply.
I heard the same thing.
Yeah.
But
You
Holly,
have to give us a plan for it, come on the CPC, you have to give us a plan for it and tell us why it's delayed, et cetera, but you don't have to complete it within a year, you just have to sort of come up with some plan that you're gonna be using it within 2 years reasonably,
But-
it's been 3.
Well, you know, we did the work for redoing the application, and that was hours and hours, and nothing came of that.
thank you for the clarification, Linda, but
So
Holly,
we can keep it going if we know you're gonna do it.
yeah, okay.
Well, with that said, I've been charged to, as the new preservation planner for you all, for a year to get something going. And while yes, I met, well, we had a phone conversation with the subcommittee of the Historical Commission. This is the HDC's, and at the end of the day, you all are the ones that are in charge to making sure that all these applications are abiding by those regulations. And there is a work group. And I do recommend that there be a joint collaboration, because at the end of the day, you all are the body that reviews these, but the Historical Commission has a role here, and I want you all to understand that role as the preservation planning group to help you all do your job, that you all give lots and lots of hours for this island. So I also wanted to kind of refer, because I think, you know, we all have to, I think we've all understood that is a great timeless book. I have read it a bazillion times. I have underlined things. I have gone through and said, okay, this is great, but this needs to be updated. There are things in there that do need to be touched upon. It does need to be codified. There are things that we've added on to over the years that have not gone into the entire document. But I wanted to remind the scope. The scope is important, and we do, you know, getting a RFP out there is what's going to help with a consultant, because at the end of the day, that's what they do. Consultants come here, they talk to you all, discuss what we'd like to see, and so having a good detailed RFP, and if we have more than a year, that's great. But I would recommend the committees of both commissions to work together jointly to create a great RFP, taking all the work that you all have done, having a third party looking at it, saying how can we make this so it's a great RFP and move forward. But just to remind you on the scope, briefly, I don't want to take too much of your time on this, but the publication is well respected by architects and preservationists far beyond the shores of the island or the boundaries of Massachusetts. Due to the extraordinary volume of applications submitted, a broader range of staff approval would be useful tool to consider. Creation of a form or worksheet to ensure new structures, renovations, or additions appropriately fit the existing context of the neighborhood would be helpful to both commissioners and designers. The idea of integrating the document with our current e-permitting efforts, which the town has already been doing, we're working very diligently on that, should be explored. Put on Nantucket unique rather than the rest of the state. Measures to coordinate with guidelines, policies, procedures within the zoning, planning, building departments would also improve permitting processes. In addition to the technical aspects of reprinting, which, okay, yeah, we can do that, but the goals are to refine language in the guidelines, rules, and regulations to implement continuity and clarity, reducing ambiguity, and improving communication of historic preservation goals. Improve and establish coordination between staff, commissioners, and other town departments. Other objectives: hire a team of preservationists with additional expertise in planning to review the current guidelines, rules, and regulations of the HDC enabling legislation. Update text of building with Nantucket in mind. Recommend measures to improve efficiency, clarity, continuity, and coordination between HDC staff, commissioners, application, and other town departments. And then the project will strengthen the HDC's ability to preserve the historic resources and character of Nantucket with better understanding between staff, commissioners, applicants, improving and review process. So at the end of the day, you all have the same goal in mind. I think there's a lot.
Yeah, let's clarify what that is. That's a grant, right? That's the grant language that was approved for the monies.
Correct.
Right, so there's not a legislative aspect to it.
No.
Just to be clear.
No. And you could do part of this grant and not, you could deliver part, right? I guess that would be a discussion.
That could be a discussion, but at the end of the day, I just want to make it clear that, you all have, the HDC, with this approved CPC grant, you have a scope that was approved for. If you all agree to how you want to implement it, that's great, but there needs to be a conversation, and I would recommend having a subcommittee from each commission's moving forward with that, whether that's to create an RFP, moving forward to hire a preservation planning consultant, great, but I think everybody understands that we all want to see this end goal to be done.
I'd like to get some clarification because I wasn't sure when I read the agenda, and so I did a little research on the Historical Commission. And the legislation states that it's the work of the Historical Commission is to conduct researches for places of historic or architectural value and coordinate activities of unofficial bodies organized for similar purposes and advertise, prepare, print, and so on in relation to that work. I don't understand how all of a sudden the Historical Commission is on board, and I'm not suggesting that there's anything untoward, but this is an HDC document, and the HDC should be the group, and I'm not suggesting that we're doing a great job of it, but the HDC should be the group that is leading this charge and addressing its matters. If we feel that was voted by an HDC in 2014, I guess, or 2012, depending on when the funding cycle was, it might have been 2013 or 2012, the HDC should be reviewing what it wants to do with those funds. Does the guidelines, are the guidelines of the grant still what the current HDC, you elected officials and appointed, believe are appropriate? And if so, how to go about doing it? And it very well may, and I think it should, involve the Historical Commission. But I don't think that I think my point is made.
So,
Can I?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I want to throw in my own thing on it. So, my view is I completely understand and appreciate what you just said. And then I look at my reality on this board, and you just spoke to it. You know, we spend a lot of hours every week just reviewing applications. And by the time 9 o'clock rolls around on a Tuesday, we're all pretty tired. And then sometimes we go in and on Thursday at 1 o'clock and we spend another 2 or 3 hours reviewing them every week. And so to ask that in addition to that work, we are going to pinpoint all of the problems that are in the current guidelines, not only pinpoint those problems, but also solve them, you know, collectively solve them. And I think that the more support we can get from a consultant, from your group, I would be very much in favor of that, because I could easily sit down and in a short amount of time say, from my view, these are the things that happen to be the big problems with that. It's what we see from week to week. It recurs. So these are the things that need to be fixed. And we participate in that process, but we're not basically trying to manhandle that whole process on our own, because I think that's too much to ask of the people that are on the board. We spend a lot of time here, you know.
I don't disagree, and I didn't suggest that we sit here and as a whole body or as an individual group and try and pinpoint and solve each issue, or even the minority of issues. But there is as I said, there is an aspect of the process in identifying those as a group that is organic, and it results in a better product that needs to be done, I believe, in order to inform an RFP. Maybe not all of it, but some of it. And if we are to go forward with a rewrite, or perhaps we don't, and perhaps we do our modulars and we continue to do minor modifications. I'm not suggesting the latter. I'm just saying, and I'm also just wanted to be clear that I wasn't suggesting that we would do a forensic or even a full cursory on what are the problems and how do we solve them. There's a purpose for a consultant. That's what they get paid to do, and I have no issue with that personally, or as a member representing anyone.
May I?
I just want to make sure Stephen's finished.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to be
Finished?
clear.
Very good. John, you first,
Yeah,
and then I
I
get right
think
to you.
this past hour has been very informative.
Thank you, John.
We got a lot to do tonight and the rest of our lives as long as we're on here. But right now, I think we've got the heads up on what might happen. That's good to have, you know? But I think we've talked to beat this to yes, because we're getting off counter and off what our general.
I appreciate that, John.
Yes.
And so these folks are here because they want to get a sense of our board, our reactions to what they're working on currently. And that's the whole reason we're sitting here, and I think it's a very good exercise. And we will be concluding shortly.
Yeah, right.
Now,
I'll
I
be
want to
quick.
hear from your friend Jesse.
I'll be quick, sorry. I think Steve's point and Ray's points are all very valid, and of course the historical commissions, and I applaud your effort here. And I think we can use the help, and I think we can be the body to govern it as well, and we can create a work group to do that. I think all these things are very feasible, and I think that being that this is an HDC book and we're HDC board, that, you know, we should be the ones to make the final decision, but we need the help. I mean, look at the agenda after our agenda about all the things that we need help with, that we need to work on.
That's the
Okay,
first
I mean, we've got so much going on, and, you know, basically, we're the board that's putting out the fires. This commission could be the ones preventing them, you know, in the sense of, you know, if a lot of this stuff could be, these fires that we're putting out could be taken care of if a lot of this stuff was fixed, and we just don't have the manpower to do it. So I welcome and applaud you for coming on, and you know, the more minds, the very smart people here, I think we can make a great team and get something done to make all our lives better and make the island better.
Thank you, Jesse.
Not for the collaborative effort as well.
Yeah, collaborative.
Yes, John?
Move this along, please.
Okay. Oh.
If you wanna come back with something,
No.
let them come in,
Well,
fine.
I think we've,
Well, I guess we're not rushing to an RFP, so I hope, Stephen, that you hear that we're not rushing to an RFP. We're looking at moving the ball forward in a way that everyone feels comfortable with a goal that we all sign up for. And I think what we are really interested in, the big goal, is figuring out how we work together. Because guess what? We've got more resources on Nantucket for preservation now and really well-aligned objectives. So what we would like to ask is, could we try it out a little bit? So you have a sub-working group. I guess it's done a lot, and I've seen a lot of what it's done. It's on a hiatus right now, I believe, although you just had the meeting, which I said I'd let you know I did watch and thought there was fantastic stuff mentioned. But could we try this out a little bit, join together with the right designated people from your committee, and maybe come back to you with some ideas about what next steps might be? We might decide, you know what, we want another year on the CPC grant, we're not ready to do this. Maybe there's something else that we want to do that's more important. But I think we have to form some vehicle where we have designated people from each commission working, who have the time, who want to work together, because we do have capacity to work on some of the getting ahead and fireproofing some of these situations. We have the capacity, we have the talent, we have the experience, and we really want to do it. But we can't do it alone, and we want to do it with you.
And I would like to add that it's never been in any of our minds that it wasn't your project. It's just that we were wanting to help the project happen.
Yeah.
It's your project, it's your writing. It's just that you guys are overworked, and maybe we can help it happen.
No, I think that's great. I just want to be clear. My purpose in making my comments were on behalf of the commission, establishing some guardrails in a public forum and determining where the board sat with those guardrails. I see the guardrails are supported. And before that and after that, I had absolutely no concerns or issues working with the historical commission. So.
Okay. Well, I totally agree with that.
That's good.
is that the sense of the board?
Yes.
Right, yeah, that's good.
Okay, we shall.
Lot to do.
I know.
Thank you.
And you put them in?
Hey, guys, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for listening to us, and we look forward to working.
Thanks for having us. So as a next step, could we get, would you let us know if there are a couple people that might want to work with us as a subcommittee?
Yes, indeed. So, Kathy, could you put that on as another one of our other business items, just to formulate that or reconvene that committee? Yes.
And we're meeting at 1:00 on Friday. We're meeting in this room. We're gonna be talking about lots of stuff. So if you want
This
anybody,
Friday?
yes, this Friday
Okay.
we will be here in this
Okay.
room.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you all. That was great. We really appreciate it. Okay, now we are going to, apparently we need to ratify something that was, well, what happened on this?
That
one?
was the application that I brought in that didn't get carried over on the agenda. even though it
Yeah,
was
that's
asked
right.
to
And so
be
now the
carried.
ratification has to do with our noticing.
Bells and whistles.
I don't even think you need to go up there
Okay.
now, if you don't want, well, you need to step away from the table. We've already reviewed this and approved it. So, we can all see who the board members are on this that are voting. Myself, John, Abby, TJ, and Jesse. Okay? All of whom are here. So does anyone have any issues, anything to discuss on this? Otherwise, I'd love to have somebody make a motion to just ratify the approval that we had already given this project.
Already given to who?
We approved this project, John, this is item number 1 under category 3, the ratification. We approved the project, but it hadn't been noticed, and so now it's been given proper notice, so we need to ratify it just for it to be official.
Make a motion to approve, to ratify.
Thank you. TJ? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we're moving along to the consent agenda. Who needs to recuse on this one? Anybody? No? Nobody?
Can I ask a question on this one?
Of course you can.
Kathy, 7, is that the one that we were emailing about? The color gray, or this is different?
Yes, he,
Where did,
he chose I had to look at the application.
One of the approvable colors,
Yes, he
obviously.
chose, would you like to look at the application?
yeah, would you mind, can I just comment on that for the group?
Yeah.
So, we got someone had come in and they were looking for a dual gray in 3-tab. And that's not approved in the historic districts. However, a dual gray in architectural is. And the question was, well, why is it not approved in a 3-tab versus an architectural? And the answer is because the 3-tab allows the modeling of the color that was found to be inappropriate to be seen, where the architectural hides that. So you can actually, we all voted to approve the architectural in the blue gray, but not the 3-tab. So
that right?
So if you're
Yeah,
looking
thanks
at
for
it in the
that.
future, you understand.
Yeah.
What are we doing with the CPC?
Okay, cool. Oh, I didn't see it.
CPC? Oh, do you mean our first discussion, John?
Yeah, discussion.
No vote was taken. They just wanted a sense of the board, which we gave them. Yeah, so
Thank you.
we're beyond. Thank you, Stephen. No one needs to recuse, so I believe it's our 5 regular members that will be voting on this. What?
You have 4
Oh, we do? Oh, gosh, thanks for reminding me. Okay, so, Jesse, what do you say? Bud, you want in on this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all those, can I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we have consent with conditions, and that we can have TJ on that one. Anybody?
I abstain.
Yes, so the vote was 4 in favor, 1 abstention on consent, and now consent with conditions.
Motion to approve consent with conditions.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, John, you're abstaining. Thank you. So 4 in favor, 1 abstention. Now we are moving along to old business. Okay.
Just approved
Shady
it,
Lane?
just approved it with.
I
Okay.
can't sit on this because I was his
Pool patio. I
representative.
don't know where that is.
Shady Lane is Cliff Road.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to represent it, Val?
Well, it must be, you can't see it, I guess, I'm assuming, otherwise it wouldn't
Shady
be on
Lane has
consent.
about 4 houses on it. It's off Cliff Road. It's one of those little, recused Oliver, okay. So you might want to bring us up to speed.
So I wasn't here last time this was heard, and at the meeting, there was on the minutes, it was talked about the second floor deck. So I went back to the original approval and just removed any changes to the second floor deck. The other changes were remove window wells, remove a railing at the front porch because it's not needed, and reduce a gang set of windows to a single window.
Thanks.
Floor railing fenestration.
Proposed. Get rid of the railings. Just a point of information, if I may, Mr. Chair. So, Ethan, the grade is changing too, so you don't have to have your stair?
Yeah, they came in here they hired a landscape architect who then came here and got all the landscape approved, so this is the revision. We don't need such a high exposure.
Gotcha.
Oh, and there's also portions of the foundation on the non-visible side of the house we're shingling it, not looking at concrete.
Okay.
Once we got the final grading plan.
Gotcha. Thanks for clarifying.
I think that was part of the earlier submission.
It says door, door
Hey.
railing fenestration.
So, Ethan, on your west elevation, what was certified is basically this was a concrete wall, and then you're gonna go to open.
Yeah, just to hide, concrete.
That's cool. Just checking.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I see that now. It's
Shingle drop or skirt.
much better.
I'm gonna shingle down here.
Okay. Comments from the board?
No problem.
Okay, there's that.
Can I make a comment?
Abby's good. Let's see who else we got. Stephen, where are you on this?
I'm good.
You're good. Okay, thank you.
John's good.
John is good.
Motion to approve is submitted.
That was it. That was
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor of Stephen's motion? Aye. Anybody else in besides me? I guess not. Motion carries by 1. Okay, so now we're on to item number 2, the shed on Angola. Our friend isn't here.
No, it's going over.
What? She's holding it.
Which one?
This is the shed on Angola, the
Motion to
famous
hold for
shed.
Angola Street for representation.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye. Happily.
All right. Okay, how about 34 Prospect?
Beam that one with a stick.
Hello.
Hey, listen, I got something new.
No, no.
Try to listen.
Okay, so
Let this
John,
happen.
here we are, John. Item 2 got held for representation. So we're not reviewing it. Not reviewing. Nancy's not here.
We'll cross it out.
Right.
Thank you.
And now you're on to item number 3, John, which you're not on. Abby is chairing this one, Jesse and TJ. And then it says Mullen Welch, so is that true? Is that accurate?
Okay.
There you go.
Hey, Chip.
Hey, Stephen, how you doing?
You, girl.
How you doing?
Good, good. I now know what mullen means.
Mullen head.
Yeah,
I thought it was a kind of fish.
Mullet. Red mullet.
Yeah, no, that's a kind of hairstyle.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're going with that, but
yeah.
Chip, you want to present?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Chip Webster on behalf of the applicant. There were a number of comments that were made at the last review of this, many of which have been incorporated into it. So I'd like to highlight those. On the front of the house, which is the southwest elevation, number 2, there was a comment to take the front door back to the existing board door. We did that. In addition to that, we actually brought the entire entry element back to its original one. It was a slightly different shape, and over time, it's evolved from some changes to going back to exactly as it is. The second item is on the rear elevation, which is northeast elevation. There was a comment on the lower level. We had a bank of windows going all the way across. To bring that back to a window configuration that mimicked the existing window configuration. We did with one change. The existing configuration, which is just above vacancy, has a very large lights, and we did the same configuration but with the smaller proposed lights that are proposed throughout the rest of it. Another comment that was made was that there were too many of these gable dormers on the rear in the same elevation. I want to point out that there were 3 that were existing. There were 2 additional ones that we were proposing. We've removed one of the 2 that were proposed. There's one that we are hoping that we can keep because it makes a staircase work that's on the inside of the house. Another just general comment is that it's been brought up at the initial meeting that the house is a combination of other structures and has evolved over time. And I think that, the changes we're proposing, I think, are consistent with that evolution that has happened throughout time with the house. And part of what, and the windows are the primary revision that we're seeking, I think are consistent with the architectural style of the house and consistent also with the history of the evolution of the house. The addition that's to the side that's replacing an addition that was added much later in time is allowing the clients to keep the inside of that main house substantially the same. I know that's not as important to you, but much of what the pieces of the house that were brought together from other structures were all pretty much on the inside of that main mass, and this is allowing that to remain. So that's one of the goals of the plan as well. So there we go. That's fine.
Okay. Anybody, Steve, you wanna make a comment?
Yeah, Chip, we had asked for a window survey.
Yeah, so Amy was the last meeting. I was under the understanding that she did submit some photographs, and I do have some additional ones. And I believe that, and this might not be the entirety of what you're looking for. We're happy to supplement more, but it was specific to, what she did was specific to the diamond windows.
Yeah.
And and you can't tell really well from this. It's a single sheet of glass where the lead is basically glued onto each side. And in conversations with the owner, they did replace these windows. They were original leaded windows, and then this is the second round of those. I could get, if it's helpful, a letter from them or something, or if you wanted to, we could even arrange a visit for you to come and take a look. But this is what we were able to find.
Yeah, so I had requested a window survey, given the iconic nature of the home, the windows being the primary aspect of the identity and the really highly visible despite the vegetation. And the fact that there's a bike path across the way, and it's right near the windmill, so it's a high foot traffic location where something where, as opposed to, we shouldn't be making our determinations based upon whether you drive by quickly in a car or a bunch of people walk by it, but I do think it's relevant. So I would like to get the window survey. I think it should identify, based upon there's a packet on our website. I think it's called the window survey packet or something along those lines.
It outlines the specs for that.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
And then
what is the date of the house, Chip?
18.
The date of the house is it's early to mid 30s. I can't remember if it's 1934 or 35. And it was assembled from pieces of other houses. And then the addition that's currently there to the side was some 50 years later or so, in the 70s or 80s.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Keep going. So just, Chip, with respect to the design itself, looking at your southwest elevation, I think given the orientation of the structures on the lot, this 2D it's not, I'm not saying it's misleading in the sense that you've done something, but it's a little misleading with respect to the mass, because you see it on angles. So what you see is a large structure. In 2D, you see what appears to be a 1.5 story structure, and then you're doing a buildup on what would be a secondary mass. But when you look at the structure in the real world, what you see is predominantly a salt box, a historic salt box. So when I say it's misleading, I'm just referring to the two-dimensional aspect of your southwest elevation. That keys up my further comments, which are that I think, and everything else flows from that, is that this addition of the secondary structure, which is really a full-on second floor with dormers, pretty excessive, would, in order to be successful, need to be some adaptation of a salt box form, roof form. I believe.
What about are you gonna comment on the other elevations, like the northwest? I can come back.
No, that's fine.
Really quick, could I ask Steve, the addition and the adaptation of the salt box, are you still talking the southwest?
I'm really actually talking about this secondary mass, which is being added to, would need to be some adaptation of a salt box.
Any particular elevation, or?
All of them.
Okay.
So I actually, if I can get further clarification, so that mass, secondary mass, is also a salt box mass instead of maybe simple gable mass.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this as a historic home that is primarily a salt box with additive, things that have been added over time. And with what's proposed, now it doesn't look like that anymore. It's not retaining its identity, and that's the concern I have, that I'm trying to articulate.
Okay, but you're not saying that you want the attached to be a salt box
I think
shape?
Yeah, if this is gonna be, if they're gonna try and do as much as they are, they need to change this so that it doesn't read as
such a more modern piece?
Yeah.
Yeah,
more
I
like-
understand what you're saying.
Does that?
Would you have the salt, which way would you have the long
I'd
roof
leave that
go?
up. I'd leave design up to them. I'm just concerned
Okay.
about the size of that
Okay.
mass and
I
how
get
it
it.
relates to the primary mass.
All right, anything else, any other elevations you want to comment on?
Nope, thank you. Windows are a concern on every elevation,
Okay.
but I'll wait for the window survey on that.
Jesse?
So I am.
Okay.
I'm okay with the I don't find it. I'm okay with the 1980s extended massing, providing that we keep the 1930s preserved. And I feel like, you know, if it's a little bit of give and take, and that I think these windows are iconic, and I'd love to see them stay and
The diamonds.
and keep that portion of preserve that portion of the building, and then, you know, give a little on the extended massing.
Thank you, Jesse.
Okay, I agree with Stephen's sentiments on the mass, the additive mass. I think there could be a workaround on matching the pitch of the salt box. So if you increase this pitch, but maybe lowered the eave in some way, it could.
Can I come? You talking about on the addition?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that, I think you've probably got like a 9 or a 10 pitch on that salt box. And you've probably got like, you've got a 9 there, so maybe it is the same pitch. For some reason, it really reads as very proportionally different and harmonious to the main mass. I think maybe it's the aspect ratio or something.
Can I make a quick, so what I was getting from Stephen's comment is maybe if this was more of a salt box form, that might tie in, which, if it were gonna go that direction, I would think that the long side would be to the right. So it's going away from the, and that might mitigate what was an earlier concern of that particular elevation looking a little tall. So that-
Yeah, I agree with that. And the only other thing I'd offer here is, adding to the narrative of the building, it's just an idea, and I'd like to see what the other board members and you think, Chip, is that on your southwest elevation, that center window, maybe don't change it. Maybe keep the diamond pane just right there, that off-center diamond pane. So it kind of indicates that these windows were changed out, and at least you saved one of them at least, right? So that's it.
Any other comments on any other elevation? And there's a lot going on the back and the sides. Okay, carrying on there. So I agree with what's been said about the additive massing on the far right. I think it's competing with the main building. So I think bringing down the height or changing the roof line would sort of calm it down. It's saying I'm modern and big and sort of overpowering the main mass. And I think the back of the house, there's a lot going on. We drove out there, Val and I. We looked up the hill and we saw the back of the house, and there are a lot of trees in the back that sort of disguise all of this new fenestration and so forth. So that might be part of our eventual okay of this application. But I think, for me, the northwest elevation is still overly fenestrated. And I don't know how to calm that down, but again, I think it has to do with that additive massing going out the back, that it's competing with the height of the main building. So now we have two almost gang dormers on the second floor. Do you see what I
No,
mean?
it's a northwest,
Northwest, yes.
yeah, okay.
So if that could be calmed down a little bit, less fenestration, I think that would help that elevation. John?
Chairperson, I'd like to make a citizen comment.
Sure.
I grew up in this area here.
Okay.
The house, 1700 house.
But this is not, actually. This is from the 30s.
It's a replica.
That structure was moved up there by a movie radio announcing woman up in Boston. She bought the property, and that house was moved, part of it was moved years ago, right up where it is, off of New Street.
This one, 34
My
Prospect?
mother-in-law lived there.
34 Prospect?
She's still there, I think.
Could we clarify that?
Yeah, so,
Oh, my lord.
yeah, so parts
Could you-
of the, so this structure utilized parts of a lot of other existing structures.
Okay.
That we know. And most of that, and that's what I was commenting to, is on the inside. So the inside of this house is pretty amazing with the woodwork and all of that. And that's why, and they want to keep all of that. But it does not resemble any of those the previous ones. It's an assemblage.
What parts of this house are moved here from, what, Sherburne or where? Where are these?
Yeah, so Michael May had a good history on it
There
at
were
the first.
two that were joined together, and then a few years later, a third.
Yeah. So holistically, it was a replica that was built in 1934 that utilized some pieces of some other houses.
Right, that's what I understood
That's-
from
yeah.
what you
That's
started. Is that a?
No,
what is this?
it
Oh,
was
okay.
really clear.
That was
All right.
Yes.
Continue. I have two more things.
Please.
Yes, on my comments. One is the salt box part, which I believe is the oldest. But even the idea of taking out what's already existing there and the cross box, taking them out, it'd be easier to put cross box in and take out the double hungs.
You mean the diamond windows?
Diamond windows, yes.
Okay.
Because it's more compatible to what's there than the double hungs are, I think. But I just think, I hope nothing happens that this here's another historical disaster by this commission, because a lot of stuff has been proved in the last 10 years. I've watched it come in and out, and it's a shame.
Well,
All
you
the
have
old
some
houses are
other-
disappearing.
Members of the board also, you have some fellow support, yeah.
I have one other
Yes, please.
comment, if I may, Madam Chair. Or it's a question really, I guess. Chip, the locus plan shows a significantly larger lot than the site plan. Is this as drawn, is the site plan that you have included in your drawings conceptual, or is this an existing lot?
No, okay, so, well, that speaks a little bit to the history of this whole project. I guess the short answer is the site plan that is what we submitted is current. The one that is, the other one is older. There were some lot line changes.
This is an existing lot?
Okay.
Your site plan is an existing lot?
The site plan is the current site plan, is the existing lot.
I just want to make sure I understand clearly.
This site plan here is accurate for what is there.
Actual lot?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, because setbacks from lot lines and things are important, and proximity and locations of the structures on the lot are important. I'm looking at the locust, and it's a much bigger lot, so I wanted to understand whether this was an actual lot, or it was a conceptual lot, or where that stood. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions? I think we're going to have do I hear something for revisions?
I think we're gonna hold, I'd like to make a motion to hold for additional information. We're looking at the window survey. I think that that's going to inform some further discussion. as well as the design comments that were made. And then together, we may have completely different design comments when it comes back.
Very good. Are you okay with?
Yeah, I feel I got some good solid direction.
Okay,
Some good feedback.
really?
Yeah.
Okay, good, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor of Steve's motion? Thank you.
And
All right.
garage to track, I'm guessing.
Yeah, why don't we want to make the garage to track? Yes, I agree with that.
Oh, let's wait for the 50.
All in favor of the garage to track?
That's open.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thanks, Chip.
Oh, Chip,
I'm sorry.
if you send the window survey in, if I have questions, I'll follow up through Kathy.
There was a garage.
Send it to Kathy.
We just had it to
Via
track,
email, and then I can, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It might facilitate if there's questions.
because it's gonna involve a lot.
I'll ask them through her.
You know, the whole.
Yeah.
It's about the buildings on.
Okay, Stanzi Gardner, you're up. Okay, so this is a new application, and I believe the rotation is back around to Stephen. I'm not mistaken. So it's regular members plus Stephen.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to abstain or just ask Jesse to stand in for me.
Fine.
Because I'm on a couple of them and he's not, and this is a hard stand.
All right.
Thank you very much for that, Steve.
And this is a project at 52 Eel Pint Road.
Nice.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Martin McGowan, present.
Welcome. I know you don't like when I say that.
Alliance. Okay. Let's see.
So in this project, we've decided to ask for a grill area on the left-hand side, an outdoor shower, and a trash enclosure on the garage, which has been previously improved. So starting with the trash enclosure and the on the garage. The only thing I'd like to ask for, because I don't know that these have much conversation, is that this window, which looks directly into the trash enclosure, if anybody doesn't care, I'll just move it out of the trash enclosure to match the window in the same location on the other side of the building.
Fine.
I just noticed it.
But, you know, that's actually a separate application.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think anybody at the
Does
table would
anybody
care about that.
About that one?
But, yeah, that just needs to, it'll get.
That's just to fix me up? Okay. Does anybody have any cares about the garage trash enclosure or the shower?
Nope, I don't.
So Marty, the way I'm looking at this, just by way of getting my arms around what you're applying for. So working sort of from the top of the sheet, the topmost piece is relocate fire pit, right? See that?
Yeah.
See that?
No, the fire pit was over there when we started the job, but I guess, yes, it's the same exact shop, fire pit relocated, yeah.
But where was it before?
Actually, basically in the driveway where the drain was. Right
here?
The white line going across the driveway. It was
here.
right there.
I see. Okay, all right, so there's that, then there's, you're putting on this new recycling enclosure on the garage.
Yep.
Which you just showed us.
Yep.
You are adding a stone patio with a grill area and a freestanding pergola.
Yep.
On the back side of the building. May I?
Aye.
I just want to make sure I got everything.
Yeah,
off the
that's
site.
page 3.
Simplify pool coping, remove stone paths. Omit stepping stones. Did I miss anything? That seems like all the stuff that's bubbled on the first sheet.
The freestanding pergola.
Well, yeah, I mentioned that.
Yep.
All right, so this next drawing HDC 1.2 shows the recycling enclosure. On the garage, it shows the pergola freestanding with the little mini bar and pizza oven. Add outdoor shower.
Is
Hey.
this a wall in front of that? Is that roll out wood cabinetry?
Yeah, so in between the cabinetry where you have the sink and the grill and the pizza oven, you have these like little stone piers. And then all the rest of this is infill.
I'm just, visibility, so I'm just questioning.
Marty, you also passed out this thing. It looked like a little bit like
Oh,
a
I thought I'd
treehouse.
show you that. Well, I'd like an opinion on that one.
Oh, so that's not part of the
That's not part of
application?
this, no,
Just
not
a-
yet.
just a-
I just thought I'd run it up
personally
the,
love it.
Non-secret
run it
law?
up the tree.
Looks like a Hugh Newell
That is
Jacobson.
the top award-winning playhouse in Europe last year, or this summer.
In Europe?
Yeah. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's pretty groovy.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah, I love it.
Well,
But, to be clear, we're not reviewing that right now.
it's not on this application.
No.
No.
Not yet.
no.
And what are we seeing?
What are we reviewing?
But the real thing to review on this one, since I don't think anybody cares about the outdoor shower or the relocation of the grill or the fire pit or the outdoor shower, that the grill area is the one thing to look at.
Right, that's
Right, that's the only thing going on. So what we did was, it's a small pergola to cachet over there. I'm actually gonna plant grapes on top of that. There is a significant planting screen in front of it, so you won't see it. The fence that's on it matches the outdoor shower that's already been approved in the same spot, same height, same everything. And so from the driveway, if you could see this at 427 feet from the road, the
You can see what they're having for dinner.
you could see what they're having dinner. Yeah, but you have to drive up in to do it. So,
And
it's-
Marty,
yeah.
so Abby was just commenting on the pergola east, which is where you see the amenities, the sink, the grill, the pizza oven, but all that faces into the property. So the part that, if there's visibility on this at all, the part that would be visible from Eel Point Road or Eel Pint Road is the pergola west, which is basically a pergola with a board and batten or
Fence behind it,
V-groove fence.
That's it.
Yeah. So that's the
So
part.
you can't, it's not visible
You
from.
won't be able to see this at all.
From the
It's gonna be
southwest.
planted with grapevines and all kinds of landscaping
Okay.
on top of that, 450 feet away.
Right.
But Marty, just out of curiosity, the fire pit was in the driveway. Does that mean the driveway moved?
No, the driveway was approved when they demoed the house.
Oh,
We saved the fire pit
Existing fire pit, got it.
and we put it in the same
It literally
area.
was an existing.
Yeah, it was a pre-existing fire pit. We just
Okay.
found a new place for it.
Thank you. Jesse, anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thanks. John?
Yes, I have comments.
Yeah.
This red line delineates what?
We'll go back with you.
The solid red line, John?
Solid red
The
line?
solid red line is the property line.
Okay.
Yep. Solid one is a property line. Actually, that's the only red line on here. The rest are sort of orange.
Now, what is your description of 48-inch black mesh pool fence in natural vegetation? What is that? That's something you're putting
Regular
in there?
pool, no, you already approved that. That got done
Oh,
like
shit,
a year and a half ago.
I just wondering why it's written here, that's all.
Oh, it's on the plan.
These are revisions, and anything that he's changing is bubbled in red.
And what is the, okay, it's on the plan, right, yeah. Thank you.
Val, you're folding up. You're folding up.
Good.
Okay. John, anything else?
The improved, but the regular does look a little odd sitting out there by itself. It might not be able to be seen.
Most of it is gonna be invisible behind the building. Yeah, just that one western face, I think it was, is gonna be all that's visible. Okay, sounds like we might have
Motion to
lift off
approve.
on this. Yeah, thank you, Abby. All those in favor of Abby's motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marty.
Thanks for the playhouse.
Okay, 12 Lincoln. Yeah, that's cool.
Would anybody, the big question about that playhouse view, if Val could see it. So I want to propose it. And the
this
reason I'm
property?
running it by everybody is because whether it was natural, that just happens to be that picture, but in the spirit of, does anyone feel that that'd be okay?
Natural weather and that
you know-
place you can't see it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, is it back somewhere behind the building, Marty?
Yeah, sure. Plenty of spots to hide it.
On this site,
Yeah, yes. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll see you. I'm not on anything else.
Oh, okay,
you don't
thanks a
wanna
lot,
do
Jesse,
any of the
thanks for participating.
Getting on any of that?
I don't think we're gonna do it again.
okay.
What do you think?
Maybe.
Oh, I need to sign that.
Night, Jesse.
Okay,
Welcome to the HDC.
you are
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah.
You are on this, Val. So this is the guest house over at 12 Lincoln, and here's our board poll.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Oh.
He signed it up again, just so that it could stay current, but we're in the process of redesigning it, and so I was gonna see if we could hold it because we're doing a complete redesign.
Yay! Motion to hold for the redesign.
Wow. How do you guys feel about that?
Second.
You are real happy?
Yeah,
Well, kind of depends on what the redesign looks like, whether they're happy or not.
Much smaller.
Yeah.
When you get to the pool, you'll understand why.
Okay, but,
All right,
all
motion
right.
to hold.
Hang on. You're requesting us to hold this for
Please,
revisions.
Mr. Chair.
All right.
I just
Now-
made a motion to hold it.
Oh.
Okay, all right. But just to be clear, did
I
you
second
have
that
something
motion.
just while we're
My
all here?
understanding is that you're going forward on the pool, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, right, and this is corollary to that,
Correct.
yeah, so.
So don't bother with this one, just go to the pool.
Right, okay, so there are actually two motions on the table to hold this for revisions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I was being funny, or tried to. That was Val's motion, I believe was the first one.
He wanted to be Popeye, aye.
Holding this one.
Now we're off to
We're
the
gonna
pool.
review this.
Okay. Here's the extent of the comments from HSAB. They simply say, needs to show fencing, screening, hardscape. Okay, fair enough. Matt, you have the mic first.
Yeah, so that's we can certainly provide that, but basically, I think the site plan shows you, first of all, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, gosh. All right, well, everyone will notice immediately that he's reoriented the guest house.
Correct.
To run along Capone.
Correct.
Big change from the last time I saw this.
Huge.
And this is in response to some of the neighbors' concerns, and some of the concerns that the board had. So we've made that concession, and our hope here, we will be submitting a formal, we can submit a more detailed landscape plan. One of our goals here is to try and get the pool approved. And the idea is that it's going to be screened by this new building. There will be no fence at this point. We're not required to have a fence.
You're doing the pool cover.
The pool cover. And so
Okay.
our hope is to, and one of the reasons we're pushing forward with the pool is we want to get the pool approved so that we can get the building permit for it. There will be a subsequent landscape plan by a landscape architect, which will identify in more detail, maybe stepping stones to the front steps, et cetera, et cetera. But this application is specifically and only for the pool.
But I love the idea of this.
Hey, Val?
But in theory, there's no screening.
Correct. Can we hold your comment just for a second?
Yeah.
So we've heard from Matt, and I believe Arthur,
Yeah.
possibly Linda, wanted to say something. They represent at least one neighbor, maybe more. So, go.
There's a reason for the
No,
pools,
no,
and I just wanna say for the pools are coming in, you're gonna be seeing more of them because there is a subversive move afoot to outlaw pools, period, or severely restrict them, which is why you're seeing several of them coming in over the next month or so before February 1st.
That was a general comment.
General comment, but otherwise,
Okay.
Arthur will speak to
Yeah,
Mr.
no,
DeMarco.
specifically as far as this is concerned, as we've indicated before, we have no objection per se to the pool, never have. We did have considerable objection, as you know, to the design
Guest
and
house.
placement of the secondary dwelling.
Mm-hmm.
The plan that you now have, which shows where they're now proposing to put the pool, also involve, I guess, moving the cabana from where it was originally proposed, and where the guest house is now rotated out toward the Capam Road side. That satisfies all the concerns that my clients, Alan and Linda DeMarco, had about it. And as long as it goes forward with the plan in that configuration, substantially in that configuration, we have no further objection, and in fact would support the project.
Great.
Mr. Chair, can I just one more point?
Yeah.
That might be germane to this, is that the cabana, we actually are planning to submit tomorrow to move the existing approved cabana into that same
I was
location.
going to mention that you just need to go do the motions for that one.
And one of the things, we're prepared to provide whatever screening you deem necessary.
Yeah, so with that, we'll return to Val, who was already touching on that issue, and I think
Well,
it
I
might be
guess when
shared
we
by other
say
members.
screening, screened at time
You
of
mean,
inspection
yeah.
and forever thereafter.
How visible at time of inspection or thereafter?
Kingdom come, yeah.
In
Yeah.
perpetuity forevermore.
Let me, I'm sure you all know who you are sitting on this board because it's identified here, but let me just make sure that I get it. Okay, I'm on it. John, you're on this one. Val, you just spoke, and Stephen is on it. So there we are. So, Stephen, can I infer from what you just said that you would be okay just adding that stipulation? Does that cover it for you? Or do you want
I
to see
actually
more?
think it's a little large for the lot with respect to the setting. I think if it were downsized slightly, that would be appropriate. And one of the things we're looking at is this idea of setting. It came brought up at the organizational meeting, and the idea of landscape materials as a screen becoming architectural elements. And just, partitioning all this off with tall vegetation kind of takes away from the feeling of some of the openness of these properties. I'm not saying they don't have vegetation along their borders, but they have vegetation that still allows visibility of the structure. So my concern would be that so long as, and I don't know how we craft this into a motion, but so long as the,
Can I say
not
something,
visible at
Steve?
time of inspection or thereafter is not
Right on the street.
forward of the future guest house, then I would not have a concern with it.
Oh,
And I do
okay.
think that the proposed pool, it is a structure. We are tasked with commenting on setting, and it is really close to the property line. So if this were another maybe 5 feet shorter, I think that would be appropriate.
Or
on
turn
one
it.
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna get into.
Sure. I mean,
Hang on. John,
Yes, this house, future guest house apparently has not been built, am I correct?
no. In fact, we haven't even seen the plan for that yet,
Okay,
John.
it has not been built, right?
No.
Right. My question to the pool, there's, where's the fencing?
There is none. This is got a pool cover on it,
Got a pool cover,
so
all right?
they don't need the fencing.
Okay. And the other was that if there was a visibility, it would be from both these sides out to the road. So,
So, John, what it sounds like is being proposed that we may be able to approve this with certain conditions relating to the size of the pool, number one, and number two, the way that the vegetative screening would be implemented. Is that fair to say, Stephen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I believe you had something you wanted to say.
No, that would be acceptable to us.
Okay, including the 5 feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are the dimensions of the pool right now?
40.
40.
Hey,
Yeah, John.
I have a question. Mr. Reed, do you have any comments as up to now?
Oh, he actually said that that he represents the neighbor,
Yeah.
Al DeMarco, and Al's.
We support this
Yeah.
with the change in the site plan.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, that's fine, John. Yes.
Mr. Chair, could I just, would 36 feet, so a reduction of 4 feet, just because the 36 dimension is something that the proportional relationship tends to work out
Did we
better.
say 5? And you're
Well, you
suggesting 4?
requested 5, and I'm asking for 4 instead, so that the overall dimension is 36 feet
What do you
long.
say, boss?
I think 4'3". No.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take that.
Okay.
Sold.
I think we're talking 4 feet. So, is there any specific language that you want to do? Okay.
You want a motion to approve it?
Actually, Stephen is going to craft a motion that includes some of his concerns.
Just 1 second. Okay, so, yeah, Terry, I'll have this written down. So the motion to be approved, as submitted, subject to the following conditions. It would be 5 feet, 4 foot shorter in length, the pool. It will be a minimum of 11'8".
Hey, sorry to interrupt you, but that would be 4 feet shorter off of the property line side, right?
Yeah.
Not just 4 feet shorter.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay.
It'll be a minimum of 10'8" from the property line.
Oh.
It's currently shown at 6'8". Well, it's currently showing
The
it.
left
You
there.
said 10'8"?
Minimum 10'8" from the western property line.
Eastern or western?
Western.
Western, thank you. Got it.
Not visible at time of inspection or thereafter.
And did you want a stipulation about how close to Capalm?
Yeah, I'm just
vegetation?
waiting for typing. Screening shall be behind any future Capalm Road structure. Any future structure along Capalm Road.
Okay. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of Stephen's motion? Aye.
All right.
Okay, thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Screening, we need
Are you
vegetation,
gonna write
right?
that
Yeah.
on here?
Vegetative.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, Joe Paul, I believe you're up next. You out there?
No, I'll write it on through staff.
Right.
Through staff, Terry.
I got that part.
All right. Hey, Joe.
Something in the middle of that.
Hi. It's snowing out my way in, by the way.
It's snowing
What?
where?
Well, on my way in, it was a nice mixture of snow and rain.
Did the temperature really drop?
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
supposed to.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like big chunky flakes.
Oh, it was 60 an hour ago.
Yeah. It's gonna be one of those freaky things where it like ices over all the place. Okay, you're changing the windows out, is that correct, or?
Yeah, we were hung up, there were some minor window tweaks the last time around, and we were hung up on the windows that face New Lane and the door and window below them. So I have, on the far left of that sheet is what was previously approved. In the middle of that sheet is what you saw at the last meeting. And on the far right are the revisions we made, which really boil down to the
East elevation.
The east elevation, correct. So previously I should go back to the original approval. On the first floor, the door and windows were centered in that wall. And then the last application, they shifted a little bit. We moved them back to center.
Good.
And actually, the distance, the shingle distance between the door and the windows, we ended up matching that on the 3 ganged windows to the right.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So you didn't ask us to make that change, but because we're brilliant, we did that change. And then
It's the right thing to do.
and then we did the triple up above. There was a conversation about shingle area and so forth. So
that's it.
That's it.
That's it. Okay.
I appreciate the changes on the first floor. I think that the triple is too much. I like your first approval with the windows separated.
On the first floor.
You mean the second floor?
Second floor. On the east.
Okay. You're not loving
I'm
the
just
triple.
looking at the three
okay.
across here.
All right, fair enough. Let's go around the table.
Sure.
All right. Okay, so Abby, I think you're on
Well,
this.
actually, I like the proposed, but now that Val says go back to the first one, I kind of think that the first one, when I look at it through my blurry eyes, sorry, I see that there's sort of the space in between the windows overall on that whole front is sort of unified, and here the ganged windows sort of stick out. So I'm fine either way.
You're fine either way?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Hold on.
All right.
I know you want to say something, Joe. Okay,
my tongue.
TJ, you're on this.
Yep, I appreciate the changes. I have no concerns.
Okay, how about you, John?
I have one question.
Okay, go.
What is the cloud for?
What's
Which
the
one?
cloud for?
This cloud, what's the
Oh,
top?
you know,
Different.
okay, that was a previous.
Yeah, that's a corner board that had run through, but those walls are in the same plane.
So John, the very first one,
Yeah.
just show me
It used to
first.
be like that,
Oh, I got you.
right? And so it's just the corner board was removed because they're all in the same plane.
Thank you.
Are you okay with the triple window over the front door? You are. Okay, so did you just make a motion? He did. He made a motion. He betrayed you, Val. He threw you under the bus. All those in favor of John's motion? Aye.
Was that with the
With the triple. I mean, basically, John's motion was to approve as submitted.
I'm a no.
Great.
You said you'd go either way.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but, okay, listen.
I'm against.
All right,
this proposal.
so there is a motion on the table. Let me recount here. Me, John, Oliver. Oh, and TJ, yeah, of course. And TJ, you were good. All right, so it sounds like at a minimum, we've got a quorum.
All right, I'm fine with it.
Oh, okay, so now it's four.
Traitor.
I know.
Yeah, backstabbing.
I'm gonna
Don't put me in the
look right
middle.
at
Yeah,
that
I
when you
know.
come down there.
I know.
Okay, so 4 in favor and I think 1
Diane.
vehemently opposed.
And
Yeah,
then if
she'd
it
hate it.
starts giving black, I'm gonna go.
Okay, thanks. All right, and now our last application of the evening other than other business.
Will we save the shortest for last?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Get
Okay.
stoned, Ally.
We're gonna do a timer.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a very.
So you haven't had a
bad idea.
timer all night, now you're gonna get us a timer?
It's good enough for town meeting, it's good enough for us.
Hopefully everyone on both sides of this will be considerate of the board and everyone else and keep it relatively brief. That's my hope.
We only had 4, Diane.
Yeah, and if it comes to that, Diane has more.
Yeah.
She was gonna come tonight, but this would have literally been.
They would never been able to get her out of the house.
Probably not. And she was coming in for one application.
No, it wouldn't have been safe for her to do that.
Okay.
Especially now it's snowing.
What?
Oh, God, please.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, so me, Val, Stephen, and TJ. All right, that's where we are. Okay? So, let's see, you're presenting over there.
I think that was, it wasn't really sitting on the chair. Is that okay? I can certainly, when we get to that, bring it up to the table. Whatever you.
Oh, I see, because I'd rather look at it there. I
Okay.
think everyone would, actually. All right, so Actually, because we have a number of players sitting over there, could you, first of all, people that are representing the project, names?
Victoria Ewing?
Chris Fiska.
Thank you. And then those people opposed and who they represent.
Linda Williams, Ginger Andrews.
Thank you.
Jay Ronnie. Connie Pierre Crosby.
Thank you.
Ginger Andrews, I'm an abutter.
Very good.
Welcome, everyone.
We do
Okay,
have an
thanks.
attorney who's stuck on the mainland. Sarah's not here, and she's representing the Crosbys also? Who's Sarah representing? Oh, that's right, she's representing Ginger. I think there's one or two other players, but they're not on island.
I have 4 attorneys represented here. It's irrelevant.
All right. Let's start with you.
Okay. So, as requested since our last meeting in September, we've revised all the drawings to accurately depict the existing and the proposed. We've included all information requested by both Mr. Welch, the board, and the public. We've done our best to find balance with and to revise the proposed addition to reflect both the client's needs while taking into account the board members' requests up to date. Specifically, we've pulled the addition off of Stone Alley in all 3 sections at varying distances. These distances we have taken are equal to the same distances you will find in the board I have put together here tonight in these photos, exhibiting anything from Miss Andrews' home located at 1 and 3 Stone Alley and the property and the dwelling located at 10 Orange Street, which is the house on the corner that comes down the north side of Stone Alley and runs more than 50% of the north side length of Stone Alley. I think we've got about 180 feet from Orange Street to the end of Miss Andrews' home. We've keyed all windows in color coding to explain what is being preserved, in place, reused, and new. We've corrected all the window pane details that were out of sorts. We've remeasured and updated all as-built. We've sought consistency in the fenestration with new windows and doors. We've included a story pole from grade showing all finished floor heights. All roof heights are shown and pitches are notated. We've notated original windows being reused, as I said. We've provided a demo plan. All ridge heights allocated, all ridge heights have been allocated, and the one dimension I missed was the grade to the top of the railing in the rear. That measures at 22 feet 4. That's not on the plans, but I did take that measurement. So from grade to the top of the railing on that 2nd story deck. 22.4. We've put length and heights on all elevations. We've removed over 13 feet in length of the addition overall, almost doubling the distance between the addition and the rear property line. Bubbled all revisions since our prior submission and included the prior submission for reference. As shown in the demo plan, the building's chimney is no longer being retained so as to keep the front existing structure more intact and as undisturbed as possible. The window survey photos will confirm the chimney dates closer to the 80s and is not historic. The dormer area in the east elevation has been cleaned up and simplified on the 2nd floor. And the posts under the sunroom have been eliminated with a new foundation wall covered in lattice. We just wanted to also remind you that overall, as a general thought in this project, we're building with the existing grade. We're not changing the grade. We're making our addition, which makes our addition not affecting Stone Alley and in turn leaving Stone Alley uninterrupted. The precedent photos here that we've mentioned earlier show a total of almost 180 feet in length on the left or north side of Stone Alley, beginning with number 10 Orange, as I mentioned, transitioning to the wall and fence that completely encroaches on the alley, and then finishing with Miss Andrews' home, stretching farther down the alley than our proposed addition at over 70 feet. And that's what I have at the moment.
Thank you.
Yep.
Chris, did you have anything to add? No, okay. Brief, please.
Come on.
Come on. Linda, you get paid by the page, don't you?
Yes, I do. I love my pictures. I love my pictures. This is for TJ.
Wait a second.
Those three are
We have
together.
3 different things.
Yes, they're packets. And
Hit it.
this one's yours. Do you have an address?
All right. Linda, direct us through this and,
I just wanted you to take a look at the top one. Come December,
the top one being what?
the old
Okay,
application from
go.
the previous
All right,
one.
fine.
I just want to show
Thank
you
you.
where we started 2 years ago, come next month. That's how long we've been at this.
Okay, so what are we looking at?
You're looking at the original submission,
Mm-hmm.
if you go to the elevations, which this
Okay.
board did not like because if you can see from particularly the south elevation, the original structure was being pretty much obliterated on all 4 sides. So
Can I speak?
that,
No, let her,
speaking.
let her finish, thanks.
So is it okay
I'm
to just people
speaking,
lie?
Mr. Chairman.
We're gonna suss that. So, and Chris, I will give you an opportunity. Don't worry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Linda.
This is where we started. That the board didn't like that, HSAB didn't like it, so they kept going. They kept going until
Okay.
I believe it was May. And then I think it was May when they withdrew
Chairman?
and resubmitted.
I'm
So
sorry
just
to
giving you
interrupt, but
basics.
Yes.
Can I please
No,
make a
no, hang on.
presentation?
He's,
No, this is a point of privilege, and the point of privilege is that in order to maintain coherence, reviewing the application in front of us, when we're just getting information at the table, I would ask that we focus on what's existing and what's proposed.
I was just going there.
Okay, we
But I
need
think
to-
I deserve
All right.
the right to make a comment without being interrupted like every other applicant.
okay, Linda,
So
continue.
then we were presented with something that was the antithesis of what was stated 2 years ago. The board has repeatedly stated, and so has HSAB, not to come down the hill. So when they say that they have addressed the board's concerns, that is absolutely patently not true. Nothing still
Linda.
is going to the south, and that's where we are.
Linda, so.
So we're still
well
concerned
aware
about
of-
this.
We're well aware of that, and I don't think it's escaped anyone's notice that it's still coming down the hill, but continue.
So we're still opposed, it's still coming down the hill, it's coming down fairly close to the top of the Crosbys, which are down, the ones that are down at the bottom of the hill, which you can see in these. These are Ginger's pictures. She'd like these put into the record. I'll give Kathy a whole copy of this. These, I can see the dates on the bottom. So you can pretty much see both structures, Ginger's house, particularly the Crosby's house, which is this one from the 1910s.
Yeah.
You can see how
Right.
close this is coming down the hill. Then you go on a little bit more, you can get some more ideas just how close their building is. The one on Orange Street is, how it's overgrown, then it's not overgrown. It's been varying degrees of overgrown. The photographs that Ginger wanted put in, the first one shows when they first put the trees in at grade in Stone Alley. Then they took the trees out, and the
Okay,
second one was
now,
where
now
they
you're
raised
to
the
the,
trees.
you are to the third package,
Yeah.
right?
And then you can
Okay.
see where they took them out of Stone Alley, backed them up onto their property, and then raised the grade 2 or 3 feet. You can see how tight the Stone Alley is by looking at these pictures, because they had to get a tree cutter in there and some other utility trucks in there because a tree fell over. One of the best pictures you can look at, Steve, is this back one. I think it's one of the last ones in that packet, where you can see how steep it is going down to the Crosbys and the one next to it, straight downhill. I want to point out something else.
Linda, you're talking about the picture taken at the top of the exterior stair looking
Yeah,
down? Okay,
looking down.
got it.
They had to come get the tree.
Yep.
On the last one, you can see how much sand washes down, because at the bottom of Stone Alley, which I forgot until I saw the picture, it's brick, but you certainly can't see the brick now. There's so much dirt coming down. When they say they're not changing the elevations, the grade, I would suggest that you look at the south elevation of their latest proposal. It looks like they are plateauing the grade, at least in the small one I got. So the bottom, the furthest east addition, looks like there's an existing grade and a proposed plateau grade. So I don't know what they're talking about, they're not changing the grade, at least on the little copy I got today. Now, we're also at a slight disadvantage. because they did put the revisions in last week in time to make it on the agenda for this week because Monday was a holiday.
Yeah.
I found out around 2:30, 3 o'clock that they had submitted a whole nother set of plans. I don't know what was changed because I didn't look at them side by side, but it was in the office, so I got a copy. But I was told by the staff that they just brought something else in at 2 o'clock, I was told. And I got a copy of it, but I didn't have time to sit there and digest the whole thing. But we are still opposed. It did not go back. This iteration, I believe, did not go back to HSAB because it was a revision.
Well, no, because.
Monday was a holiday.
Monday
Yeah.
was a holiday.
So they don't, the timing doesn't work out well, but HSAB has said before that they'd like to see every time this thing gets changed. It hasn't been back to HSAB. I hazard a guess, though I don't want to speak for them, at least on our part. It's still going down the hill. It is still too much. It is still a very large glassed-in area and a big porch coming way far east that it should not. And they have not yet gone south, which is what has been asked by almost everybody at the table, certainly by Diane and TJ, and Val has suggested they go south as well. Nothing's going south. It's still coming straight down the hill. And they're still changing the grade, at least on the south, from what I can tell from the drawings, the little copy that I got. So we are still absolutely opposed to this design, and they didn't really pull it off of Stone Alley very far. Stone Alley's kind of an odd duck, but they didn't pull it off. It's gonna be a wall going on that side where there hasn't been one historically, where there's been an open view, which they've obliterated by the raised grade and their bushes, one of which has already died. So this is where we are at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
May I add just a
Of course you can.
general comment
Yep.
here? The applicant has repeatedly referred to my big house on Stone Alley, and I don't believe that 1 and 3 Stone Alley, and 2 Stone Alley are comparable. 1 and 3 Stone Alley were 2 single-family dwellings sharing a column wall from the 18th century. 2 Stone Alley is a barn converted into a cottage in the late 19th century. So it's a contributing building, and what it contributes is different than what my building contributes. Mr. Cole, you're looking confused. Am I looking real fast to you?
Oh, no, not at all.
All right.
No.
So,
Gosh, I hope I
so
can-
the other, the dimensions on the photographs, you'll notice, come from the steps. His comments that my house is as close as they're planning to come only refer to the 2 sets of steps. They don't refer to the solid wall, which they're proposing to put along Stone Alley, further blocking the view. And I don't believe that the height is dimensioned out for you. I think that if you took into account all of the grades as you look up from Union Street, that I think that they're actually vastly exceeding the 30 feet as an average.
Yeah.
I think you've been more than fair to this applicant, and that the so-called addition still overwhelms the original building. And we would ask that you deny it with prejudice because the applicant has been consistently unresponsive to all of the commissions that the Historic Structures Advisory Board and this commission have made about the building.
Thank you, Ginger.
I will be brief for your request, but just want to reiterate and encourage the board to deny the application with prejudice. Last time I was here, you were very clear that the incomplete application that was not fully responsive to all of your criticism didn't come in this meeting, that you would deny. And as Linda and Ginger said, currently they still are coming down the hill in a very massive, overbearing way that will overwhelm Stone Alley and my client's property. So at some point, we are hopeful that it's tonight, that enough is enough. And instead of just trying to beat the board efficient in submission, that we would put this to bed with a denial. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I speak now?
Yes, I told you that I would allow you. Yes.
I don't feel too comfortable speaking in these situations, but
You're a shrinking violet.
Unfortunately, I have to do it. So firstly, I want to say thanks very much for everybody taking 2 years to do this application, and what it's come down to is the fact that the application is for a 12-foot long, 18-foot tall addition, a 19-foot long and a 24-foot tall addition. Over massive in downtown Nantucket? I don't think so. The unfortunate thing is, yes, it's on Stone Alley, as other people have stated, but that's the height of the actual buildings. There is a foundation that increases the height of the buildings on Stone Alley. They're not exactly massive additions, are they? If you say it's 12 foot wide by 18 foot tall, if you go next door, there's a cabana that you've just approved for shutters that are bigger than that, at 16. If you look, if we come in and apply to...
We didn't approve the shutters.
We'll move along. I think you did approve it, but that's okay. So if you look at the neighbourhood, which is what is continually said, this is going to change the neighbourhood. This is in keeping with the neighbourhood. Yes, Gingy's building is 60 foot, 70 foot long. Yes, it's a duplex. Yes, it's been there since whenever it was moved there. This is in keeping because of the size of the additions that have been made to buildings on Stone Alley. If you look at the building down on Union Street, the Crosbys, the Union Street, their property is absolutely maxed out on every square foot that possibly can. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think it's great for them. They've done it tastefully, but yet again, it's the whole length of Stone Alley is their property. So these people that we're representing this evening have put, I think it's they've reduced their property by a considerable amount of what is available to them. If you look, and they actually, if they applied for a stone wall down the whole of Stone Alley, it would be in keeping with Stone Alley. This addition here was done within the last 15 years. This is a foot off Stone Alley. This is across the road from it. This was done in 1982. Stone Alley, in keeping. There's another addition just a little further along that was done here. Is around about 7 feet, or maybe that's 9 feet.
It goes in 10, is that what you're saying?
So this here goes in 10 off the Stone Alley. Yeah. These are considerably taller than the additions we're looking for. So it's in keeping with Stone Alley. Yeah. Unless we put a stone wall up the whole of Stone Alley to address that, which we're not suggesting we want to do. So the application is actually applying for a very small, 2 small additions on a small house. In keeping with Stone Alley. This property here, I believe is 4 feet off the property line of Stone Alley. And we're screaming that this property is running down Stone Alley. And yet, this is the example of what is on Stone Alley.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I add
Much
one thing?
appreciated.
Ginger wanted to
One of
add
the photos?
anything also. You forgot.
Real quickly.
I just wanted to point out that I took these photos on Monday.
Yeah.
So you can clearly see that the grass has grown. This berm is completely on their property, not on the alley. There's no dirt, there's no drainage. Stone Alley is completely untouched. It's in its existing form.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Ginger forgot to add something.
All right.
Yes. I have a plan. This is actually a draft. It's not the one that's yet recorded, but it shows the Stone Alley, my lot, the house on it, which uses less than 50% of the ground cover, and has considerable breathing room to the east and to the south. The neighbors, you'll see in your packet there's some photos of to Stone Alley, and when Mr. Fairbanks lived there until, let's see, he died in the early 90s, I think. He used to come up an outside staircase to get into his kitchen from his parking area, which is on the east side. And after he died, his niece inherited the house, and she was the one who added that deck on the east elevation. And that was to replace the rickety outside stairs that you'll see in some of the previous historic photographs. And I didn't actually attend the HPC hearing in 1994, and we have not yet been able to locate the minutes, but I do remember Mrs. Downey saying that it was difficult to get the commission at that time to approve that change from a staircase to a deck in 1994. And
Because they didn't want it coming down.
And they didn't want it coming down the hill. So that was something I'd like you to consider.
Thank you. Okay.
Can I say one thing?
I'd rather not.
The ground cover issue.
No, but, okay.
Yes,
I
we'll
will
leave it
say
at that.
something about that.
We'll leave it.
You know, the ground coverage is the ground coverage, you know, including yours, Ginger. I appreciate all that stuff, but we're not, at least I'm not, in my mind, comparing one thing to the other. I'm looking at this project on its own merits.
Thank you.
You know, putting aside zoning, although I am going to say something about zoning only because it's germane to the design of the house right now and will affect the design of the house. But I'm going to open this up to the board right now. Who would like to begin?
Can I get just a clarification on
Of course you
something?
can.
Because I'm seeing discrepancy. If this comes back, I'm going to request a roof plan. So I'm looking at the sheet, elevation 1.
Yep.
The east?
Yeah.
East.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, I guess, this is meant, if you look at elevation 1 and you look at the site plan, there's some, maybe I'm just misunderstanding, but there's some kind of discontinuity there. With your roof and your wall terminations. I'll do it over there so you guys can see too. So there's this is a jog in the building. The foundation plan needs to have the jog line. This is the rear. What I'm pointing out is the rear of the addition facing towards Orange Street.
East, is it east or west?
Facing towards
That's
Union.
east.
Towards
That's
Union,
east.
I'm sorry, towards Union, sorry. So there needs to be a line here. That follows the existing line of the corner board up. There needs to be a rake line here,
Oh, right.
okay? And then that rake line needs to relate to the mass of the dormered mass, which is closest to Union Street.
Yeah.
And then over on this side, it's similar in terms of how these roof planes and the addition relate to, I mean, here it's just a line, but I'd like, that needs to be sussed out. It's a drafting thing. I've seen this before in
Yep.
CAD programs.
Yep.
I'm not suggesting anything other than needs to be clarified in the
Clarified.
drawing so we know what we're looking at correctly. Because there's enough going on here, which is why I was talking about coherence before. We need to be able to look at these things and absorb them, and not just the 2D print, but what the factual build is going to look like.
Details. Yep.
So we need to understand the details, and that's why I'm harping on being able to everybody be able to maintain a train of thought in their own head versus what everybody wants to share.
Yep.
It's not that people can't share. So that was the point of clarification. I believe I have this correct. The line is here, it follows it up, and then it follows up straight. And this is the ridge line of the rearmost addition.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the dormer off of that.
So then the next consequence of that is that this cheek wall is dramatically under our
3 feet.
required 3 feet.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's something you're gonna want to.
So the dormer in at least 3 feet on the left and right there.
Yeah, and then that's why I said that this side needs to be looked at too, is because we need to understand that this is an accurate relationship so that it's not,
It's all cleaned up.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make sure I understood what I was looking at.
Now, that wasn't the extent of your comments, right?
No,
That was a clarification.
I was just figuring that all out, and I'm gonna look at the drawings.
Okay. Is anyone ready to begin?
We're digesting.
I'll
Okay.
go.
All right, thanks, TJ.
So I'll just start with a few general points and maybe get to some specifics. I'll still hold that this design's going to go. The massing needs to shift to the south. It works better with the existing grade and the character of Stone Alley by doing so. It also allows the existing portion, the existing dwelling to be punctuated as the historic mass, whereby the massing scheme presented sort of envelops and confuses the matter of what's historic or not. So by shifting the entire addition to the south, we really punctuate and honor the existing historic mass. And I would say that the design's going to work much nicer in terms of the streetscape, the character of Stone Alley, and we're not going to have a home that's so high out of grade because the grade is higher to the south. That's just some fundamental issue there. I think I've said that before. A couple of technical things I've noticed is that the C windows in the east elevation dormers are inappropriate. So we can get rid of those, please. It probably will go away anyway if you shift the
3 feet, yeah.
Yeah, the dormer cheeks in. The 8/1 windows in the sunroom.
Yes.
I've noticed like a little discrepancy. It says those are reused windows, but I took a scale to them and they're not the same size as the existing drawings. I do have a question there. And on your A-type windows on the bottom, are those behind the lattice? Or are they?
They're in the foundation wall. That's a foundation wall with lattice mounted to the wall.
Okay.
There's a note, I believe. Looks like the whole thing.
So
It just says 1 inch or
Yeah,
diagonal lattice.
I thought it said attached to foundation wall. I might have missed. That might have gotten lost in this.
Okay.
So backtracking just a little bit back to the massing. The general massing could be successful if it's just pushed to the south. I appreciate the reduction in massing and some of the changes in the massing, but they just simply need to move south, and that's the extent of my comments.
Thank you. Who's next? Anybody?
You still want some time?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be quick. I don't want to be redundant, but roof plan, I want to see show the existing footprint on the site plan with a dashed line.
Sure.
Agree with the comment with respect to C on the east elevation, south elevation. East. Why don't the cardinal points on this property screw me up? I don't know why. It's not like it's a difficult one. I really can't underscore enough the success I think that could occur by shifting this new proposed mass to the south somewhat significantly. So I'm not talking 3 to 5 feet, I think more, and then working out the details with respect to how it transitions from the existing structure, I think would be appropriate. And I do acknowledge the imagery of other homes with their setbacks, but I'm looking at this individual one, and I'm looking at some of the variables that come into play with that. So I think those are really the areas of concern at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Val?
I think I agree with everything that's been said. I do like the lines of this. If it was pushed back, I think it's,
The lines of what? Could you be more specific?
of the massing,
Which elevation?
on the north and south.
North and south, okay.
I think
Thanks.
the way it's broken up, is giving a little more prominence to the house that's there, but like TJ, I think I've said from the beginning, I even have a sketch that I did with Chris a while back, shifting everything south. And I think that's it for now.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so I got a few things. First of all, I agree with everything that's been said. Second of all, I mentioned a little bit earlier that I had a zoning thing. The zoning is not our purview. However, when the zoning affects it will affect the design of the building in the following way that is part of our domain. Here we go. The east elevation, if you measure from the grade at the building to the highest ridge, it's 32 feet. And we all know that you're allowed to have one side of the building that is 32 feet high, but that side is as measured 4 feet off of the face of the building. So if we, okay. The way that you calculate a ridge height is not at the face of the building, it's 4 feet off of the building.
Oh, right.
4 feet away. They drop their tape measure there. Now, so what's working against you is obviously if you measure 4 feet off of the east elevation,
Right.
you're dropping down to a grade that's considerably lower than the grade at the building, so you're a minimum of 1.5 feet over zoning. Putting aside my other concern that has to do with the aesthetics is the amount of face that we're seeing on the east elevation, and I think everyone shares that concern.
And you can see it.
So that's the main thing for me, is the east elevation and its sort of overall mass, mainly the vertical mass. And as always, I start looking at some of the details, some of which have been mentioned, like TJ mentioned, there's 4 light windows which will need to be changed. Again, that's on the east elevation, but you have the same C windows shown on the north elevation. Now, those are 6 light windows. So, which is it? The 6 light seem to have much better proportions than the 4, just so you know what my opinion is. The other thing that we encountered this with the project out in Sconset, where we had this sort of second floor deck roof that they came in and they assumed that the floor sand, which was going to be very narrow, it worked out not to be just because of structure. And so, again, I'll call your attention to the east elevation. And the windows that are just under that second floor deck, I'm trying to find that page. What's the number of that page?
E1, EL1.
EL1? Oh, okay, I'm going in the wrong direction. So I'd like you to look at, first of all, you have a 3.5 foot high rail up there. Code is 3. To my mind, there's no reason it should be 3.5, and that is exacerbating the height of the building, so that can come down. But then the other issue is that 3.5 foot high rail is sitting on top of a floor sandwich, a deck floor sandwich that is a foot between the head of the window and the surface of the deck. Doesn't allow for waterproofing, doesn't allow for head casing on the window, it doesn't allow for a lot of things. So the actual, something's gotta give, like, you know, you can't do it. The windows have to drop. I mean, that's really the only thing to do if you keep the third floor the way it is. So my main concern and focus is the east elevation, although I share the other board members' opinion, widely held opinion, that some of this building should be going off to the south, the open
Along
porch.
the ridge.
Yeah. So there we are. Those are my comments.
I have a couple more, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I kind of forgot you.
No, that's okay.
You did your question and then I skipped over you. Go ahead.
It's okay. So I guess one of the things that, you know, Chris, and you've shown us the images of the adjacent properties and so on and so forth. One of the tools that are used in that area are stone walls. I mean, they're everywhere. It's stone alley, for God's sake. And I think that if you were to move the proposed addition south enough that it were to accommodate, and I'm not redesigning your project, I'm just trying to give you some ideas on how things could work to minimize the presence of to help make the addition appear not so large. One is obviously these windows. It's top heavy. The other is that if this is pushed back, you could be using a stone retainage. And these windows, I didn't draw it here, but this could be like a 6/1. You don't have to change anything on the inside, but if you're going back 8 or 10 feet, and then you're putting a stone wall there, and you're bringing up the grade, so it's stepping away from you when you're on Stone Alley, and then you're not seeing this large of a structure. This is not a great picture, but the result could be more, and again, I'm not designing a project, I'm not suggesting you do this, I'm simply trying to illustrate the change in the perception of scale. If you were to carry that wall over and break it up with, you know, you've got some nice antique granite steps and so on and so forth, this whole facade could be like a 6/3 window, same top of window heights. You're not changing your floor plan internally, but you're changing the perception of this side by decreasing the visible elevation by a minimum of 2 to 2.5 or 3 feet. I would say you have to be very cautious on this wall height, because this is a long expanse view from Stone Alley. It can't be something that's, I think 3 feet tall is probably too tall. And I think another part of the aspect.
Also, there's that code issue.
Right, well, they would have to bring it out a certain amount in order to make it work from the home. But another aspect of this.
Sorry, I meant the safety code.
Yeah.
The 30-inch rule.
Gotcha. In order for something like that to be successful, you need to take into consideration the length of the wall and how the wall is actually designed and constructed so that it doesn't accentuate the length and in fact breaks it up. Because otherwise you're just adding fuel to a fire in terms of at least my perception of what would be appropriate and inappropriate. And again, I'm not suggesting you do a wall there. I'm not suggesting you do this wall there. I'm just trying to throw out some ideas on how you might be able to mitigate the perception of the height of this in a meaningful way that benefits the community. Thank you.
I have one more comment on that side.
Yeah, go.
If you look
East,
at,
you mean?
If you look at your east existing elevation and that little sunroom bump, I think the reason that's successful is because there's, you know, more trim.
Yeah, similar to what Ray said in that, above the windows and all that.
The way it's rendered at the moment, we have really skinny trim. And this looks more like it was an element that got filled in, and I think it will help also simplify that side.
You mean the casing trim?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, look at the existing.
It's true.
It looks like it was a
very
porch
narrow.
that someone put windows in between the posts. Is that what you're?
What is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you look at the
Yeah, no, I
existing?
got it. I agree.
Was that it, Val?
Yeah.
Okay, so Abby would like to say something as a non-voting member.
I'm sorry I'm not on the board of this one, because I feel
were
very
the first
sensitive
time.
about it. What?
You were the first time around.
Yeah, but Okay, so I just want to say in general of Stone Alley that there are some pictures here of it in the 50s where it's, it's idyllic. It's really a historic site for Nantucket, and creating this. I'm on the north elevation, going down Stone Alley towards Union Street, creates almost a tunnel effect, which takes away from the ambiance of the whole of the historic site of Stone Alley. And I feel Val and I were there a couple hours ago, and we were looking up from Union Street. The effect of the east elevation is going to it's going to come forward so much. It's going to overwhelm, especially with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 windows in a row, repetitive windows, right on the sight line. So I think it's going to overwhelm looking up from Union Street, overwhelm walking down. It's going to take away from the historic side of Stone Alley. And I agree with my fellow board members that they've asked so many times to have this shift to the south, and it hasn't shifted in, I don't know how, 2 years.
So can I just say a few things very briefly, quickly?
So Chris, are they in response to what Abby's just said, or sort of more general stuff?
Just a general of what's being said from the board.
Okay, quickly.
So just very quickly, the owner obviously has heard, and so have we heard many, many times from you that you would like us to move it to the south. Okay, the owner has obviously given up a fair amount of square footage by moving and by cutting back the additions that he's requested. He's moved we'll call it the east elevation back to, I think it's around about 9 feet from Stone Alley. Am I incorrect, or 7?
5, I think.
7 or 9 feet from Stone Alley. The
7,
rear,
maybe
the
7,
rear
yeah.
section. So he's obviously hearing what you're saying, but he's also requesting what he would care for, and he's understanding what you're saying. And what he's asking for is for perhaps you to understand a certain amount of what he's saying. We do appreciate that from Union Street you will definitely see the glass off of Union Street, as you do now. However, when the owners purchased Orange Street and this property, and the owners on Union Street purchased the property lower, there was a tree that was cleared. And now there's a tree there, and if you stand there and look at the tree and give the tree 2 to 4 years, you will not see the lower portion of the east elevation. You will definitely see the higher portion of the east elevation. But if you walk down Union Street, and as you said, people have commented the fact that yes, Union Street is changing. Yes, your Orange Street. Yes, we now have 3-tab green shingles in the historic district. Yes, in the 50s, Gingy's house was beautiful. Yes, but this is a living building, and the HDC has done a great job a huge job at looking after downtown, and the owner is understanding that and is asking you to look at what he's asking for. Thank you very much.
So with that said, Chris, the wall on Union Street, is that the property line? I'm standing in number 9.
I think the wall is 9 Crosby. Do you know? Is that 9 Crosby's wall?
You can see in between
No, so
Yeah, we were at 9.
from standing on Union Street.
Yeah, the wall's on 9 Union.
Are you looking at Crosby's driveway?
I don't know.
Yes,
We
that's
were
right.
sitting-
You're right.
yeah,
Exactly
we were-
right.
we were-
That's their wall.
Yeah.
That's their wall, and there's
So-
actually a brand new brand new
me,
stone
what-
wall to the left.
That was put in when they cut the off.
Hey, order, yeah.
What occurred to me today, I'm talking, thank you, is
Sorry.
that not only was this little sunroom getting extended, which in my mind was what was happening, it's actually coming about 12 and 18 feet, 30 feet this way and adding that back on. And so today I was like, what is that gonna look like with that massing right at that wall or right
That's what
Well,
we've been
it's
saying
actually-
all along.
It's actually
Kinda.
not at that wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very close to the wall, and that's what we've
So
been saying.
my
understand
question
what
was,
Yeah.
maybe if you put a stake where it's gonna end, that would also kind of help us.
Yes.
We did ask for that a
And,
while ago.
I got these pictures off of the internet somewhere from Macri or something, which shows like an overall view looking down.
Yeah, I had those in the file.
And I was wondering, is this their house as well?
Yes.
So is the reason it's not going south because it will
Absolutely.
block the view?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, we've said that from the very
Okay.
beginning.
And so,
Okay.
Ray,
Yeah.
when you're ready, can I say a
It's not
couple
our
things
problem.
in response to Abby and
thank you.
Couple years ago, 2 years ago.
I do appreciate the way it's moving, it just needs to move a little more.
Can we ask for,
You mean moving further away from Stone Alley?
Right, but the
Just to be
massing
clear.
has changed significantly from the first time, and I think that
Okay.
it's better.
Just a misunderstanding on my part. If the grade is not changing, okay, let's just talk apples and apples. You walk down Stone Alley and the grade is not changing. Yeah, you move back a building back 2 feet. You move the building back 5 feet. You move the building back 7 feet. The grade still stays the
Oh,
same.
okay,
So you've still got the height, haven't you?
I understand what you're saying,
Changing on
Chris,
the
but I think
south.
that conceptually, we're talking about some different things. When the
Right.
board is talking about moving to the south,
Which is
we're
what-
not just saying like, take the building the way it is and push it to the south, although that would be an improvement. I think what the board is saying is rather than going down to the east and then as you move down the hill and you keep your ridge the same, it gets taller and taller and taller until now I'm pretty sure you're violating zoning on the east side. That it doesn't move that far east. Some of it actually goes to the south. And then you accomplish two goals. You have one, as seen from the east, the low side, it's less tall because it doesn't come as far down the hill. That's one. And two, the perceived mass, as seen from Stone Alley, gets shorter because some of the building is back there where we're not going to see it. That is, I don't want to, speak for the board if I'm,
No, that's right.
not saying
And that's what H7
correctly,
said.
but I'm pretty sure that that's what the thing has been. It's not like to basically take the building and go shove it, further off of Stone Alley. It's to take a mass and move it over, something that's currently on the east side, move it to the south side, and the whole building on that elevation gets shorter and it gets less tall.
H7
As
said
seen-
that every time.
And I
Okay,
think-
but I just, I wanted to get clear on that.
I think that
Go.
I think it's important because it made some previous comments. This part of the discussion is really important for a final solution that's approvable, in my mind, is appropriate. Because I was using that drawing with the limitations of what exists to show if you pushed it back, you could put some stone.
Correct.
But it didn't incorporate this important point, which is that there's a three-dimensionality to this. Obviously, it's a structure, but to the relocation is not simply pushing it back from Stone Alley. It's as you push it back, you have the opportunity to be moving it away from Union Street, which is what you were just saying.
Yes,
I was
you're right,
saying
yeah.
move it away from Union and move
Move it away
some
from
of it.
Stone
Yeah,
and move it
exactly.
away from
Yes,
Union.
yes,
Is it,
correct.
and I just wanted to be clear that, one, I agree with that, I think we all do, but two, when I was drawing out that, there's limitations to what you can convey as existing drawings. Thank you.
But the board must also understand what the requests of the owner of the property is.
Well, we do.
We do.
And as long as we all understand
Yeah,
that he's
yeah.
only doing something because he has a view, nobody's ever claimed he hasn't, and that's what he wants to
Understood.
keep.
Well,
And you know what?
I had a
That's-
suggestion as well that you can step it down internally. If you want that much space, you can have your pieces stepped down with the hill.
Okay, so the weird thing about that
It
is
looks
if you
bigger?
step it internally, it doesn't really help with the overall head height because the existing building,
Okay.
that's the highest ridge. And assuming that you're coming down, even if that whole piece that was furthest east were single story or less, it's still
Still
that
28
tall.
Yeah, from that
it's-
view, but I was thinking Stone Alleyway.
We'd have to soffit your ceilings at all.
It's
year.
well,
But it's
no
also
matter
missing
what,
the whole historic.
no matter what, you're gonna have a 25-foot tall addition on the east end of the building, no matter what. That's just the way it is.
Well, 25 would certainly be better than what I measured now, which is 32.
Well, I'm just saying, no matter what, if you have a one-story building on that, do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. I
Can we
do.
have
Unless
just
you
one more
retain it.
comment?
Hey, okay, so.
Maybe you put a retaining wall.
that
Yeah,
was
because I'm gonna
my-
make a motion.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Could I just
can we
respond?
have one, they've had multiple comments. We just want to say the biggest objection on this is coming down the hill. And the fact that the flat roofed
Coming down
element, coming
Stone
down
Alley.
towards east.
Yeah.
The flat roofed element is tripling in size and going up
I
in
think Val
height.
made that observation.
Because that flat roofed element is one of the biggest I've ever seen in town.
Thank you.
Visible.
Thank you.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman,
Yes.
I just, the applicant has mentioned the other property's stone walls, and my house is at what's more or less original grade because it was put there in 1720 before Quantity Hill was dug out.
Cut out.
So this two-stone alley overhangs where Quantity Bank was dug to make Union Street dry land. So I think what's missing in this application are the existing contour drawings, which you had requested and which were submitted earlier,
They're
but
here, yeah.
we didn't see them.
We do have them.
They're on
I
the site
mean,
plan.
we have them.
That was actually one thing I wanted to point out to you, Abby, in response to Linda's comment about the grade on the north elevation,
South. You're
south
showing a
elevation.
change in grade on the south.
All we've done, there's 2 feet added only behind the top retaining wall. Everything else is at existing grade. And
That's
these,
the way it would appear.
yeah, all of these elevations are taken off of a stamped surveyed plan. They're directly correlated to a stamped surveyed plan.
Can it go back to HSAB again before they come back in
Well, I
again?
was gonna actually propose that, because somebody,
Because they want to
Yeah.
see
one
it.
one of the board members
That's a
did
good
mention
idea.
that, and I think it would be worth.
And can I just point out to Val and Abby again, if you wanted to review, a while back I submitted a precedent package of photos up and down Union Street. And it kind of shows example after example after example of what you're describing would be something you wouldn't like to see here. The windows, more than 7, full decks above. So those are in the file if you guys want to
Okay.
review those
Most of
again.
those are set way back.
Hang on. So we have several things that we're looking for here, and it looks like you may have been
Yeah, I
keeping
got
an
it.
inventory.
So I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
That motion would be as follows. There are 4 points to the motion. One is motions for revisions, with revisions being reorienting the addition to the south and the west. Number 2 is inclusion of a roof plan. Number 3 is inclusion of the existing structure's footprint, including the existing structure, the porch, the whole thing, just for clarification.
On the site plan?
Yeah. Number 4 is corrections to what is currently the east elevation in whatever iteration occurs with changes, so that the roof, the relationships of the roofs are properly delineated. And number 5 is that the complete packet with those changes would be presented to HSAB before we review it again.
And there's
There was something else?
there is one other thing that Abby and or Val mentioned with respect to putting up some stakes on
Okay.
the easternmost edge to see how far it trails down the hill.
At the right height.
And we'll put it in the right.
Well,
we'll put it
okay,
in
so the
location.
difference between stakes and poles. So staking is simply showing how the extent that it comes down. Poles are showing how far it comes
Height.
down plus the height.
Height.
Okay, so I'll include that aspect in the motion, and then I'd like to just have brief discussion on the motion.
Steve, is that stakes and height?
Yes,
Height
just
Okay.
Height poles.
height poles, so we got stakes we got height poles that are also stakes. and
At the
everybody's-
east
In the general area of that rear line.
They're just very
yeah,
tall
poles.
stakes.
Yeah.
Stephen.
Eastern end.
At on the
Eastern end.
eastern corners of
Not general.
what's currently proposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would be the northeast
Not on a
corner and the
windy day.
southeast corner.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's the motion, and then I'd like to, if we just have very brief discussion on it. After, if it gets approved,
Well, if you're gonna discuss the
we don't
motion,
get, we
we're
don't
gonna do it
second
before
here,
that.
so we don't need
Yeah.
to.
Okay.
So that's my motion.
Whoa.
Would you entertain discussion on the motion?
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds like you have something else you want to say.
I just want to get
Okay.
clarified for the record is that we've asked for height poles to get an appreciation of what's currently represented. However, what we've asked for as a group, I understand, is that we would like revisions that reorient the addition to the south and the west, because there could be a conflicting perception there. So I just want to clarify.
If it is, I will paraphrase what you're saying as a possible concern is, once we put the height poles up, we're saying, oh, well, let's stick with that elevation as drawn.
I just don't want there to be a misperception that that's what's being said. That's all.
Okay. All right, well, so listen, if there's no further discussion on the motion, I'd like to take it to a vote. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to see who is in favor of Stephen's motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 It's unanimous. Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
It's too late now, but that included HSAB in there, Steve?
Yes, it did.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so thanks, everybody. Is this mine? Yeah, this is mine. So,
blizzard outside.
listen, it's still relatively early, but I'd like to at least have one early night.
1 to 3 inches.
So, get out.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I just thought
When I
we could.
took my
You mean
break,
now, or
Tonight.
Guy and I sort of vanished with snow.
So when I look through,
Oh, I don't want it. You can have it.
I'm gonna smack my gavel down.
Okay, go.
Okay, so we have a number of other business items, some of which are going to require discussion and a fair amount of discussion. Others are kind of just, we need to look at them, and I think we can quickly vote them through just to get this list a little bit more under control. You guys with me so far? So in other words, there seems to have been a little bit of a snafu in terms of the posted HEC meeting schedule, which had us meeting on New Year's Eve.
Yes.
So I don't believe that anyone wants to meet on New Year's Eve. Would that be
Fair.
accurate? Okay,
I'll come.
good.
I won't.
She'll come with the champagne. All right, so I think that what needs to happen here is we need to have an amended
Yes.
meeting schedule.
So.
And, oh, do you have a draft?
I do. I tried and proposed.
Fantastic.
Like
Okay,
an applicant.
yeah.
All right. So
But you're prepared.
But yeah. Here you go, Rick.
Thank you.
I'm not besmirching all applicants.
So, just so you know, the proposed is, it will be a new business week. Here are some applications on the 2nd and carry it over to the week of the 7th. The reason that I suggest that is because if we switch the alternate and we make the other old business meetings in January and February a new business meeting, it puts a kink in the operation for the advisory boards on a Monday because it's a holiday. So
Yeah.
I was just trying to keep those as old business. So that's why I did that, if that makes any sense.
it does.
Okay, yeah, so just to kind of, sometimes they can't meet because it's a long weekend. And
Maybe they should change the days they meet.
Yeah.
it's only during that, only during those types of
Tail wagging
holidays
the dog.
that it can be a
Yeah.
little.
So can I just ask a question on this?
Of course.
So Kathy, it looks to me like the change is basically, we're not meeting on the 31st.
Right.
We're going to add new to the January 7th meeting,
Second meeting,
January.
Thursday of that week of New Year's Eve.
Well, then it says meeting date is either 12/31 or 1/7.
No, well, I have over on the very last column, that's the Thursday meetings of 1-2.
Say it again, Kathy.
The very last column is the Thursday meetings.
Yeah.
So that's why I highlighted that in yellow.
So you added new to 1/2 and you added new to 1/7.
Do like a new /old for one.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure I
Yeah.
understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
if that makes any.
Okay. Well, I think we all know that this thing gets changed routinely for this or that reason, so.
Motion to approve the schedules.
There you go. That's what I was looking for. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so that's one thing. Now, let's see. I'm looking at, there was a couple more, what I thought were easy ones. Like-kind application update vote.
Motion to approve the like-kind application as submitted in the packet that we've all read.
All right. Wow.
Oh, that's great.
We are cutting right through this. Thank you, Stephen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did she explain what like kind means?
She's gonna do it on the back,
Oh, yeah, we're gonna do
Okay.
that, and then that's gonna be on our checklist.
but that's on our checklist. as a
Yes, it
little
will be.
group.
Okay.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
So that gets the
Hey,
application.
how about the agent sign form update?
So I discussed that with Andrew, and Andrew has said that electronic email is sufficient through town council. Or
Electronic email what?
if you, want,
If somebody sends you an email, Ray Pohl, I give you permission to
Permissions.
represent me at the meeting or be my agent, that's good enough if you print it.
no, for the application that you can sign on my behalf as an owner. Let's say I own the house and you're working for me. I can send you an email saying that I approve you signing on my behalf for the application.
So you sign on their behalf, but you're not the agent?
Well,
No,
Because to me, it's one and the same.
They should
No,
be.
you are the agent.
No.
You're signing on the owner's behalf.
Can I jump in?
Well,
Just for a second?
signing and representing, because they're two different things.
I was just talking about the application, about the
Right.
signature.
Okay.
So just, my understanding from the discussion is that town council has said, through Andrew, that it is acceptable legally for an owner to say via email that such and such can sign an application on my behalf. What we're saying in addition to that is let's make sure that they also, it should be implicit, but they clarify and represent the
As
application.
well, okay,
Mhm.
right.
And then that
okay.
way it kills two birds with one stone, the
yeah.
legalities of it and the information we're looking for.
Okay, I will check with him.
And then I would just ask that we would, I hate to give you more stuff to do, and I know you do this, but if someone, you're the gatekeeper on that. If someone hasn't submitted that and they sit down at the table, then, we're looking at you to say, hold on a minute, I don't have a form, not to make you the bad guy, but we have no other way of knowing.
It won't go on the agenda.
Okay,
Oh,
It's part of the incomplete application, part of the checklist.
okay. And I'm not talking about, that's why I said combining the two, not just signing it, but being represented. So if they don't have something that
Right.
says you sign it and represent it,
Okay.
it doesn't go on the agenda.
Gotcha.
Okay, I just want to make sure I
simply
understood.
the one that says act on my behalf. It's the HDC and building.
Yeah. Okay. So do we, I would suggest that at some point we kind of document all these in a list and vote on them so that there's a policy in place, an official policy of the HDC and procedures. We don't need to do it tonight or anything, but as these develop.
These being
All
the forms?
Such things as what our required procedure is for an agent submitting a form, what's acceptable, what's
Yeah.
not. Because like Kathy, kind of came into this and she's searching for information in a way from our discussions. You made a checklist and you found a checklist, and the idea would be that what would happen is we would develop a binder towards having this information all in one place, so that anyone, including a member,
Wouldn't that be
could get
fantastic?
refreshed
Yeah,
on what the policies and procedures that we voted are.
right.
Right, that could be part of the
Agreed.
checklist, too.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention for the collective.
So that could lead us then into this update on checklist for and frequently asked questions. Is there anything we need to know about that?
I was hoping that we would have it done.
Hoping that we would have it done?
Yeah,
Just point
but we
something
did
out.
not.
Yeah,
We were working
so
on it. over
we
the-
hold on that one for
Yes.
now. Okay, good.
At
Val,
the bottom of our application, it says, I hereby authorize my agent named above to act on my behalf and make changes in the specifications of this plan contained in this application in order to bring the application into compliance with the HDC guidelines, I hereby agree to abide and comply with the terms and conditions of this application, and I hereby agree that the submission of any revisions will initiate a new 60-day period. If you
I
have
know.
an email.
There's a redundancy there.
Right, yeah.
So the funny thing is, Val, I've always said that regarding this, that we have an in-house thing. It's a limited power of
That's what
attorney.
I have.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with official HTC form work. So when we do that application, the owner doesn't sign it. We do. Because the owner has given us limited power of attorney to sign it. So whenever you guys get an application, it's either me or Lisa signing it.
Right.
You know, our owners never sign that. We don't want to send them the application. You know, it takes too long.
Right.
So that's our solution to it. But yes, there's a bit of redundancy there. But I guess having this would just allow somebody to use that avenue, that tool, as opposed to what we just talked about.
Right, so we're not requiring that someone email that. They can submit, in your instance, if you wanted to, you could submit the form you use that stipulates. I mean, we're not, I want to make sure we're clear, we're not requiring that it be an email. It could be in your normal business process of workflow, as our chairman just said, they have a form they fill out and it gets signed. So they just need to turn that in with the application so that Kathy has a record of it.
Right.
We don't need to have an email.
Correct. That's right.
We just,
Yes.
we had asked, what is the minimum acceptable threshold?
And it
Through
would be
town
an
council,
email.
and it would be an
The
email.
email is the minimum
Yeah.
acceptable. And then there's other stuff that's more acceptable.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And covers you as a designer and architect.
Okay, so frequently asked questions we're gonna hold on for now. Here's one that I'm not familiar with. Discuss solar work group participants.
I'm not familiar with that.
Anybody know anything about that?
That was something that Lauren had suggested we do with.
Oh, so she's looking for some board members to be able to interact with her on stuff.
Right.
To
help.
How many is she hoping for?
Well, I'd like to get some clarification on what this solar work group is about, because we have guidelines that have been approved by the HDC, so I think agenda items kind of need, I think, come through you.
During the organizational meeting, she had mentioned that she would have a.
Well, I think where we left it, I'd have to look at the tape, but it's there, was that Lauren was going to make some changes to the existing guidelines for us to review, because there was a concern that there weren't enough pictures, or something along those lines.
Our existing guidelines?
Yes.
Okay, so, you know, I don't know those guidelines intimately, but I have a feeling you guys didn't do anything on those, right?
No, but
you
we
inherited them from like
we
five, yeah.
We reviewed them.
You reviewed them.
And
because I think that it might be worthwhile to look them over again now that this seems to be a much more pressing issue than it was back then. I mean, it's, you know, way more relevant now than it was back then. And
She was looking on the website and saw the HVAC guidelines and thought that would be a nice.
the HVAC mini split stuff?
Yeah. Something similar
that
to
was
that.
That was very well thought
And
out.
more user friendly, she suggested.
Yes.
So maybe a work group.
Yes, understood. So,
I nominate Steve and Val.
I'd like to know more about the work group. Like, who's in it?
Well, we'll find out.
Well, but see, that's the thing. This is an HDC work.
Here we go, because this is shades of our
exactly.
first discussion,
Yeah, all of a sudden,
where it's almost like, wait a second, they're taking an HDC function and they're appropriating it for themselves.
And we don't even know who's. I mean, it's for me, it's not this particular project or this subject. It's the principle of how it's being addressed needs to be directed and controlled by the HDC, because we're the ones who have to live with the result. And if we're not careful about how it's formulated, we may end up with something we really didn't anticipate.
Definitely not. So here I have an idea. Kathy, I believe you just said that Lauren is currently reviewing our set of guidelines, and making notations to them and comments sort of thing?
No.
Is that what you said? No.
No, she suggested a work group to put together and develop a guideline very similar to the mini split guidelines.
All right, well,
And then also if you needed help, she could facilitate some grants to help you rewrite or beef up what's currently existing and also have successful design elements around the island, successful portrayals of solar panels on the roof.
So here we have an existing set of HDC solar guidelines. We have those in place. They're available for review. It would be really great if Lauren could, and this can happen in written form or verbal form, say, here are my thoughts on the guidelines as written, ways that they can be improved and so forth. And then she submits that to us as a board. We read it, we digest it, and then as a board, we look down the list and say, well, so she's making this point, how do we feel about that? And just go down the list and see what we can do by way of taking the existing guidelines and modifying them in a way that, whether they're more user-friendly or more relevant to current technology or whatever, that we do that.
So,
okay? I think that would simplify everything. Go, Steve.
I'd like to suggest then, just following up on that we get a written submission with proposed changes to the existing guidelines so that we have a chance to review it in advance of the meeting. And then the other is, I'd like to ask that in the meantime, we have guidelines that are kind of buried in the sustainable booklet.
Yeah, nobody knows how to find them.
Right, and so I think the first step would be, as a placeholder, is we would request through Kathy, at your earliest possible convenience, to excerpt the solar portion of the guidelines, which is the solar and the water panels, which no one actually comes in and uses, but
nobody uses
solar,
those
electric,
anymore.
and hydro.
Yeah.
And post it on the website with a link. And post it on the website with a link so it says solar guidelines, so people can click on it and look at them in the meantime.
Yes.
I have a suggestion, sort of an overall general thing.
Well, can we close that? Are we good with that or not?
Yeah, go ahead, close it.
Are we good with that?
I am very good with that.
Okay.
She actually added in the bottom of this, and I was just gonna show you.
I don't think I think we should post ours as they exist.
Okay.
And then anything that comes forth as a recommendation.
Yeah, we got to review that.
Yeah,
Before it goes up, that we have to review it.
So we're clear, we'll post an excerpt of the existing on the website with a link that says solar.
She just added black panels on black roofs, that's all she added.
Well, it's actually in the guidelines that the color should match. It's already in there.
Okay.
I mean, just so you know.
Okay.
Okay.
So, well,
Abby.
I just wanted
Yes.
to say in general about these building with Nantucket in mind and these pamphlets about solar, and there are other topics. I'm wondering if I don't see something. First of all, I think building with Nantucket in mind, that book looks like somebody found it under somebody's grandfather's bed, right? And it's glued together with a binding. So I'm thinking more like the Brosco book, where you've got a plastic binder, and it's helpful, and it's more, I don't know, it doesn't have that poor stupid door on the cover.
I think that poor stupid door is one of the oldest doors on Nantucket.
I think someone volunteering.
I have the leather-bound volume.
So I'm thinking of the aesthetics of it, and a sort
Building
of a
with
fun,
Nantucket
friendly
in
thing
mind.
that you pick
I have
up
the original
something, and
leather-bound.
you can
Kind of more like an outline
I
form
know you
than.
did.
right, and so
wordy.
there would be several pamphlets on the chapters that we need of what we do.
So actually, that's what we had come up with as a work group, was the idea that we would go through modules. I'm not saying we do it just that way, but we'd go through the modules. We'd pick out all the relevant information from the existing guidelines. There would be a short chapter on those topics that would be referential, directional, guidelines and regulations. And then you still have the narrative body left from the guidebook. So you're not totally just gutting the value and the
Right.
historic nature of the book itself, right? We're the Historic District Commission, we're gonna throw our book away.
Right, and,
But
yeah.
so like along those lines,
Use that as
yeah.
a guide and have photographs and examples of what you're talking about so that it's sort of user-friendly
Yeah, no,
to
we agree.
builders.
Okay.
I think we all agree.
Good.
Did the CPC come across with any money to?
Yeah.
I heard about it, but have they got it?
Like 7 years ago.
$30,000.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Ours to rewrite the
I
guidelines.
had another comment. I know we want to go home. The guidebook,
Yeah,
town council, Mr. Durensis,
yeah.
sat down with the commission over some hard times. He said, look, that's nothing but a guidebook. The only thing you got is hard and fast rules and regulations, voted. On the back 2 pages.
Oh, yeah,
That's all they've got.
Yeah.
Everything else is, everybody putting their own opinion in.
That's correct.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Okay, so, well, I mean, we actually made a dent in this.
Kathy, can I ask, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Is there anything you're hanging on with this stuff?
That's a good question to ask.
I am, the town mission statement,
Oh,
we're gonna get back.
mission statement.
So,
Is that something we can just vote in?
No, I haven't gotten
No, okay.
any feedback, so I presume we're good with
Well, I
just
gave-
adding the
I gave
maritime
you-
and the Quaker. And I meant no written feedback subsequent to our last meeting.
No.
Okay, just wanted to make sure no one had.
No,
From you guys.
I don't have it.
What?
Kathy sent it out I think 3 times so far.
All right.
Send
I'm
it
no
to
joking.
Listen,
Email to
4 times the charm.
it'd be really great. Stephen put a lot of work into it. If
Yeah, me
okay.
too.
Well,
I
all right.
can't.
So let's swear an oath right at this table
pinky
that
swear.
that it will be reviewed and able to be voted upon, discussed and/or voted upon at our next meeting.
Well, I need to have feedback
Prior.
prior.
Okay.
So,
okay. So this.
so
okay, this is
feedback by the
interesting.
next meeting. And
All
then if
right.
I have questions,
Well,
we can talk about it in
Let
an
me think
open
about that
forum.
with respect to open meeting.
Right, so if they submit feedback to Kathy, and Kathy distributes it to all of us, and and then we discuss any questions I may have, if any, at the next meeting, and at the following meeting, I can have something in writing.
Jesus, can't we just all get together and?
We can't, it's open meeting law.
I know, but what if we post it can't we
No.
post it?
The only issue, I believe, is that Val
Sunshine.
hasn't had an opportunity to
I
review it.
trust him though, I go with what he
Yeah,
says.
why don't you just do it and send it
No,
to,
if that's the
Kathy
sense
and
of the board, I would take a vote on it. John?
I have a copy of it here.
Oh, well.
But I haven't made the changes to it that were asked.
oh, God.
Oh, okay, so.
You
voiced
can't
some-
see
okay.
the painting till
I have
it's
an
finished.
original copy.
All right,
No, I'm fine with whatever you want to do, I just wanted to be clear if she passes that
Right,
out,
that's
that
the old
that
one.
that's not what we're gonna be
we
voting.
didn't talk, yeah. So
We really should have the document.
I think it's a critical
The
matter.
the completed version. All right, so
I
I'm
appreciate
gonna
it.
stick with the
Call
idea
me
that
if you
Val.
want.
No, okay.
Stop deleting Kathy's
For those,
emails
for
every
those of
day.
you that are interested in reviewing Stephen's document,
Yes.
Our mission,
Kathy will redistribute. If you have any comments, send them back to Kathy, and Kathy can simply say, here are the comments on this.
Okay.
Can I send it to Stephen or do I send it to the group or to you?
it's up to you guys.
I don't think it
Yeah,
matters,
if you get them to me, then I'll incorporate them, and then I'll get us the document for the next.
because there's
Okay.
no,
The following
there's no
meeting.
real deliberation happening there.
As long as you don't reply all.
Right.
So tentatively, we'd be looking at presuming everything looks the way we just said. The meeting of the 26th.
Look at your new proposed HTC meeting.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I didn't
Well,
realize.
no
I
one's
still
going
have it.
outside tomorrow, it's a storm.
No, that's the current one, you want the proposed one, the second page.
Right?
Yes,
I
sir.
have a comment. I've watched every year go by for so many years. New Year's and Christmas. New Year's, no, Christmas you take off if it's on, no matter what day, it's off. And then a week later, so anybody back here, you've got to wait 2.5 weeks before we look at them. Maybe we should just meet,
Oh,
even
I
though it's not
yeah,
Christmas
no,
or
I think
New
that that's
Year's,
actually in the
meet the day
cards.
before.
Yeah, so John,
Get one of them out of the way.
the most recent thing has us meeting on a Thursday to sort of catch up. Meeting on a Thursday.
We're gonna meet on the,
Thursday?
we're gonna meet on the 19th and then the 2nd.
For when? What month?
Before
December.
Christmas and then right after New Year's.
Yeah.
And maybe we should meet one Thursday then before, whatever it is. Just don't let it go 2 weeks in a row. We do a backlog, and that slows up the future ones after the New Year's. And, I don't know.
19 to the, well, that's less than 2 weeks from one to the other. Did I get that right? 19, 26,
I
no.
don't think we're gonna have a whole lot, because everybody's doing holidays.
Yeah.
We're gonna have
Yeah, no
all,
one's gonna be
we're
here.
gonna have a whole bunch of pools is what we're gonna have.
I mean, I'll come here Christmas Eve if you want.
By January, we shouldn't have any, because by then, presumably the thing would have been posted.
Oh, right, yeah.
So we're looking at December for all that crap.
Remember last year, it went into the first, I think it was on January 13th.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it
Oh,
went into
yeah.
the
So
We had
there's-
a
week.
boatload of.
Okay, maybe.
something that wasn't on here was the articles for town meeting
No,
warrant.
actually, that is on here.
Kind of.
That's the very first thing. It says discussion of recommendations to the planning board on possible warrant articles. I believe
had
that's,
sent
I
one
believe
out.
that's what you were
Yes,
talking
no,
about.
I made copies.
Oh,
For the
yeah,
height change back,
right.
We're distributing.
but I wanted to get a sense from you guys, if that's something you're not interested in, I could do it as a citizens article instead of from the HDC.
Is it as simple as returning to the 30 feet?
Yes,
That's it.
it's the same words,
But
just,
it's, there's, just if we're gonna dig into it, there's conflicting information within the article. I think the existing article, there's something in there that
Oh, really?
refers to 32 feet. Maybe I just read it too quickly.
I didn't quite understand it, but.
we don't have to discuss it now, I just wanted to see where you land, because if it is gonna be a citizens article, I have to have it in by the 18th.
So it says, there shall be, the existing article says there shall be only one highest point for each building and or structure. No one building and or structure site shall exceed 32 feet.
That's
zoning.
the zoning,
This is
that's the
HDC.
32-foot thing that now that's it.
Mid-Island
Okay, that's very interesting.
So that's not.
Because,
But this is.
because
oh,
that
was a zoning
language,
bylaw.
that language doesn't take into account that they changed zoning to allow you to go higher than 32 in certain zones.
Right. So this, but this is this is a zoning bylaw amendment, commercial
Yeah.
mid-island district.
Oh, well, if that language that you just read relates to the commercial mid-island district, it's completely wrong. Because the commercial mid-island is 35, but I don't think there's any
It's
detail.
40.
Is it 40 or
It's
35?
40, I just
Oh,
copied the
40
old
feet,
article
okay,
and
40. Maybe I
Okay,
was
so then it
thinking
says,
40.
so, well, then, my point is that what it says is 32 feet, except in the CMI,
Oh.
and then it goes on to say 40.
Oh, okay.
But-
So they make that exception.
Right, but then what this says is 30. So it just seemed confusing to me.
Well, isn't this because of the slope law?
Yeah,
The
the 32 as one side maximum is because of the slope law.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Okay, I like that sound.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Well,
All right.
well, what about Val's question? Does she want to do a citizens thing?
Val, two choices. Citizens thing, or we would somehow have to get the language all in place and correct so that as a board, we would feel comfortable presenting that
To the
to the
planning
planning
board.
board. To the planning board.
We would present it to the planning board because it's a little gray area whether the HTC has authority to be, well, I'm not gonna get into that.
You mean
At this point,
to-
we would
to
submit
do
to
the
the planning
zoning
board.
thing?
Yeah.
Well, no, that's why the planning board's allowing us to do it,
Yeah,
because
no.
they want us to influence.
Yeah,
what-
I'm not trying,
yeah.
there's no hidden message there. We would need to put it together to submit to the planning board. If we don't, if you didn't do it as a citizen prior to the deadline, there'd be two options. One would be presented to the select board by their deadline. The other would be, I think, more copacetic in terms of everybody working together, would be presenting it to the planning board.
Correct.
For discussion and
Yeah.
potential adoption.
And when's that by?
Soon, not
Yeah.
the 18th, but
But,
soon, as Leslie.
but the planning board of the past adopted that height based on the master plan, so
Oh,
I'm not trying to say
get
one way
some
or the other, but I
pushback on
don't
the
see where you're gonna get. I'm just trying to give you information.
I know, but
Wow.
who made up the master plan with 40 feet?
Well-
Without asking anybody, they just made it, so we can have an urban complex in Mid-Island in
That's a good
complete gridlock.
point.
You can't build a skyscraper if the HCC doesn't approve it.
No, but why have, well, that's
Just saying.
not much to rely on.
Thank you.
Hey.
Are you gonna approve minutes?
Sure,
Yeah.
which
You good,
one?
Steve?
There you got the ones I submitted. Thank you.
Steve, you're good?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, John. Good night.
Oh, a motion
All
to
right.
approve October 29 and 31 minutes.
Very good. All those in favor of Abby's motion?
Aye.
Aye.
And we'll carry over all the items that.
Yes, please. Do we need to vote on that, or does it
I don't
happen
think so.
automatically? I think it does.
We're almost
think it-
done.
Or it's over.
Yeah, we're good.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
all right.
Woo!